Chapter 575. Sui hesitated a bit before walking in. In order to open the market in the Kingdom of Ruhr, New Flyer had invested quite a bit in Karaka City. Not only did they choose to open this store on the most prosperous street, they had rented a very large store through Newman's connections, placing it in the front of the entire street. But now, in this huge shop, there was no one around. Instead, there was a group of people in different outfits in the middle, forming a circle. From the crowd, there was a familiar voice that kept coming out. "Call your store manager out. What kind of broken store is this? I don't have anything I want to buy. Let me tell you, if I can't buy what I want today, your store can just wait to close." Hearing the clerk's voice in the crowd, Sui knit his brows and walked in. "Ambassador Hakkinen, it hasn't been long since we parted. I never thought that we would meet again. This world really is small." When Sui spoke, he attracted everyone's attention. Ambassador Hakkinen turned around and looked at Sui. He narrowed his eyes and gave a laugh before revealing a surprised expression. He raised his voice as he said, "Aya, isn't this Chairman Su? What? His Majesty is magnanimous and finally let you out?" Seeing his expression, Sui's heart instantly understood. This guy had clearly come here to cause trouble. Since his goal had been achieved, Sui naturally wouldn't provoke him and cause trouble for himself. After thinking about it, he came forward with a smile. "Of course His Majesty is magnanimous, but I have to thank Ambassador Hakkinen for being magnanimous and forgiving me for offending you. Sir Ambassador, I was frivolous and ignorant before. I ask for your forgiveness. Since you've come to our company's store, it is our company's honor. As an apology, as long as it's something in this store, you can choose whatever you want and I'll give it to you for free on behalf of the company. What do you think?" Ambassador Hakkinen was confused by Sui's sudden change in attitude. He seriously looked at Sui and found that his smile was very sincere, not having that arrogant look from before. Moreover, he had already received enough compensation from King Tarek. No matter how much of a bastard Ambassador Hakkinen was, he knew that it wasn't a good time to cause trouble for Sui. But he had heard that New Flyer had opened a store in Karaka City, so he specially made a trip here. He couldn't just go back without doing anything. If he let Sui go this easily, it would make him feel uncomfortable. Thinking of this, Ambassador Hakkinen's eyes turned before he gave a cold snort and said, "Chairman Su, it's easy for you to say this. You don't have what I want in your shop. May I ask what products the Sir Ambassador likes in our company? As long as you say it, I will definitely provide it for you," Sui said with a smile. "This is what you said." "All right, I saw several magic sedans on the road, and felt that they weren't bad. As the ambassador of the Kanla Empire, if I don't even have a magic sedan, it would be a loss of my status. Chairman Su, what do you think?" Sui laughed before nodding. "That's right, with the Sir Ambassador's status, it isn't suitable for you to take an old horse carriage. Only our Frestek Chamber of Commerce's new magic sedan can match your status and identity. Sir Ambassador can be assured, although this store doesn't have any stock right now, I will immediately have someone bring it over from the company's headquarters. No matter what style the Sir Ambassador likes, we can deliver it to you." Ambassador Hakkinen knit his brows as he looked at Sui. Now that Sui had this respectful attitude, he didn't have any reason to fly into a rage at all. Moreover, he had scruples about King Tarek's attitude, so he couldn't go too far. After thinking about it, Ambassador Hakkinen raised his hand and pointed around the store. "Since we don't have magic sedans right now, give me a few of these things to play with first." Sui immediately said with a smile, "That's easy, as long as it's a household magic machine here, I'll give you every single one." Ambassador Hakkinen slowly nodded. "This, you know. I still have a group of subordinates and many relatives and friends at home. 100 of each household magic machine, what do you think?" Even if Hakkinen wanted to rip him off, He never thought that Sui would be even more greedy than him. At most he wanted around 10 of each kind, but he never thought that Sui would ask for 100 right off the bat. When he was wandering around the store, he had looked at the prices of the household magic machines. The cheapest magic fan cost 6 gold coins each, and the more expensive magic air conditioner cost over 30 gold coins each. If there were 100 of each kind, the total price would be over 20,000 gold coins. Adding in the magic sedans Sui promised, this time Sui had given him items worth 30,000 gold coins. After quickly calculating the value of these items, Ambassador Hakanen's face couldn't sink any longer. He couldn't help revealing a smile as he nodded at Sui with a smile. Good, 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 we'll do this. After saying this, he patted Sui's shoulder and praised, since Chairman Su is an understanding person, then everything can be discussed. Alright, we'll write off everything from before. Sui nodded with a faint smile. Many thanks for Sir Ambassador's magnanimity. Ambassador Hakanen gave 2 laughs before his expression suddenly changed. But Chairman Su, the matter between you and me can be written off, but the matter between you and my subordinate can't be written off like this. Sui was surprised as he looked at the middle-aged man that Ambassador Hakanen was pointing at, and his eyes slightly narrowed. With his strong sense of magic and elemental magic, he could easily tell that this middle-aged man should be a magician, and he definitely wasn't weak. I'm here to get justice for my little brother, the middle-aged man said in a deep voice. Little brother? Sui looked at the middle-aged man in surprise. He thought of the magician he had knocked out of the horse carriage and found that the two of them looked similar, instantly understanding. Yes. My younger brother was seriously injured by you and is still unconscious on the bed. Chairman Su, how are you planning to explain this matter? The middle-aged man asked in a serious voice. Justice? Explain? Sui looked over him and couldn't help giving a cold laugh. Your little brother made a move against me first and was very ruthless. In the end, he was heavily injured by me because his skills weren't as good as mine, so I already let him off easy by not taking his life. You're asking for justice from me? What kind of explanation do you want me to give you? This is simply a joke. The middle-aged man's face turned even darker as he looked at Ambassador Hakanen first. Ambassador Hakanen took a step back, looking like this matter didn't concern him. The middle-aged man nodded and took a step forward, arriving in front of Sui. He said with a serious look, no matter who is right or wrong, you have heavily injured my little brother. We are all magicians, so in the name of magicians, I formally challenge you. When these words were said, everyone around them gave a shocked cry. Magicians were different from warriors. Magicians always respected their status, but there were rarely 2 magicians who would duel. This magician's strength wasn't bad, and New Flyer's chairman Su was also a magician with decent strength. If the 2 of them were to duel, it would attract everyone's attention. Sui didn't have that big of a reaction. He just looked at the middle-aged man with a frown before shaking his head. I refuse. The surrounding people gave another shocked cry. The middle-aged man also had a look of surprise. Chairman Su, you actually don't care about the dignity of a magician? You actually refuse my challenge, eh? You are simply a disgrace to magicians. Sui gave a shrug. I'm sorry, I am a merchant. My status as a magician is just a side effect. If you want to say it like this, it's up to you. Hearing Sui's reply, the surrounding people and the middle-aged man were all stunned. In the signs, the status of magicians and merchants were like heaven and earth. Of course, magicians were the heavens and merchants were the earth. Although there were many magicians who would choose to interact with merchants in order to earn money, and even start their own businesses, when it came to their status, everyone would emphasize that they were a magician and not a merchant. In the eyes of magicians, becoming a merchant was because they had no choice, and was actually a very shameful act. But Sui was clearly a magician with decent strength, and now he was emphasizing that he was a merchant, and instead saying that his status as a magician was just a side effect. This was simply overturning everyone's common sense. The middle-aged man stared blankly at Sui. After a while, he said with difficulty, "Chairman Su, you are insulting all magicians." "I didn't mean that. And I said this in front of several great magicians, and they didn't express any objections. Do you have the right to question me?" The middle-aged man was stunned, because he suddenly remembered that there were indeed two great magicians in New Flyer. If he felt that Suyi's words were insulting all magicians, then the two great magicians were clearly more qualified than him to express their opinions. "All right, to be honest, I'm very busy right now and don't have time to duel with you." Seeing that the middle-aged man had nothing to say, Sui continued, "If you really want to use magicians to solve this problem. All right, there are many magicians in New Flyer who would be willing to replace me. Even if you want to duel with the two great magicians, it's not impossible. Of course. I'm just afraid that you don't dare." Looking at Suyi's slightly mocking gaze, and then thinking of the hundreds of magicians in the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce, as well as the terrifying lineup of two great magicians in charge, the middle-aged man's face turned ashen. Chapter 576. After Ambassador Hakkinen left with the middle-aged magician, Kennard couldn't help saying to Sui with a frown, "Sir Chairman, I understand that you don't want to offend Ambassador Hakkinen, but giving him this many things at once, isn't it a bit too much? It's less than 30,000 gold coins worth of things. It isn't considered much," Sui said with a smile. "It depends on who it's for," Kennard said with a serious look. "If it's something that can bring benefits to our company, then 30,000 gold coins isn't considered much. But this Ambassador Hakkinen, I don't see how he can provide us with any help." Sui laughed. "Although I feel that Ambassador Hakkinen is useless like you, we still have to consider his status. He is only an ambassador from the Kanla Empire to the Kingdom of Ruhr. He can't be considered an important character, right?" Kennard's brows knit even tighter, looking very confused. To be blunt, since he was sent to a small country like the Kingdom of Ruhr as an ambassador, it means that he isn't important in the Kanla Empire. Investing in him, I'm afraid it isn't worth it. That's where you're wrong. Sui shook his head. This Ambassador Hakkinen is ignorant and has low abilities, but being able to become an ambassador is already a problem. Although the Kingdom of Ruhr is the same as the Lampari Kingdom, being a small country on the edge of the continent, an ambassador is still an ambassador. He represents the will and image of the Kanla Empire. Not just anyone can become an ambassador. Kennard was a bit surprised. Could it be that this Ambassador Hakkinen has some special abilities? He doesn't have any special abilities. Sui revealed a faint smile. But this Sir Ambassador has a very outstanding older sister who is currently the most favored concubine of the Kanla Empire's emperor. Now do you understand that a fellow like him can also become an ambassador? Kennard suddenly understood. However, on second thought, he felt that something was amiss. "Sir Chairman, this is your first time in the Kingdom of Ruhr. How could you be so clear on Ambassador Hakkinen? Could it be that you've collected information about the Kingdom of Ruhr through other channels?" "No, His Majesty King Tarek told me all the information about this ambassador." Kennard was stunned. "King Tarek told you? Why would he tell you this information?" "This is also one of the ways he's showing his sincerity," Sui said with a smile. "According to my observations, King Tarek is also very dissatisfied with this ambassador, but he tolerates him because of the Kanla Empire." Kennard shook his head. "I'm afraid no one can stand this kind of guy." "Don't look down on him too much," Sui said. "No matter how useless he is, because of his identity, it is very likely that he will be a breakthrough point for our new flyer to enter the Kanla Empire. You think that I've given him too many household magic machines, but I feel that it's too little. Think about it, Kennard, with this ambassador's personality, If he receives the magic sedan and household magic machines, what will he do after returning to the Canlampire? Kennard thought about it before his eyes lit up. I understand. This Lord Ambassador would definitely brag about it. This is equal to giving our new flyer a very effective advertisement. Now you understand why I'm this generous, right? Sui said with a smile. Kennard nodded and couldn't help saying in an emotional voice, Sir Chairman, I have to admit that in terms of foresight, I'm far from being able to compare to you. When you knew that Ambassador Hakkinen was in the motorcade, did you already think of this? Sui revealed a faint smile and waved his hand, not replying to this question. All right, don't flatter me. Before Newman comes looking for us, let's take care of the things here first. The new Flyer's main store in Caracas City had been open for over a year, but this was Suyi's first time personally inspecting it. Before Sui came, they had already received the notice. They knew that Sui was here to evaluate the magic machine market in the Kingdom of Ruhr, so they had already made their preparations. With Suyi's order, the manager of the main store took out the accounts that had been prepared ahead of time and gave them to Sui to look over. However, Sui didn't care that much about the account. He just looked over it before giving it to Kennard to look over, and he focused on the sales of the main store. Based on the sales statistics, it could be seen that before New Flyer opened a store in the Kingdom of Ruhr, there were already various Xinfei brand magic machines circulating in the Kingdom of Ruhr. But most of them were bought by Newman through New Flyer, bringing them back to the Kingdom of Ruhr to sell. So the sales volume wasn't that big, with the highest sales volume being 200,000 gold coins in a month. When New Flyer opened a store in Caracas City, and set up branches in several other cities in the Kingdom of Ruhr, the sales volume of Xinfei brand magic machines in the Kingdom of Ruhr exploded. Just last month, there were a shocking 370,000 Frestec brand household magic machines that had been sold from the main store and the various branches, with a total sales of over 5 million gold coins. Although the profits were lower due to the tariffs imposed by the Kingdom of Ruhr compared to when they were sold in the Lampari Kingdom, the total profits still exceeded 2 million gold coins. As the popularity of household magic machines continued to increase in the Kingdom of Ruhr, the sales volume was also gradually increasing. In the first month, the sales volume was less than 100,000 gold coins, but last month it exceeded 700,000 gold coins. And this was only New Flyer's results in the Kingdom of Ruhr within a year. If the people of the Kingdom of Ruhr recognized Xinfei brand magic machines as time passed, the sales volume would continue to increase rapidly. Before the situation in the Lampari Kingdom changed, the Lampari Kingdom was New Flyer's #1 market. According to the current trend, the Kingdom of Ruhr would soon surpass the Lampari Kingdom and become the most important market for New Flyer. However, Sui pondered for a moment and said to the president of the Kingdom of Ruhr branch of New Flyer, Marlock Cool, from next month onwards, set up some household magic machines produced by other companies in the various branches of our Chamber of Commerce and carry out related promotions. I guarantee that these household magic machines of other brands will also have good sales volume. Cool was stunned. Why? This is our own branch. Why do we have to sell things from other companies? This is an agreement between our Chamber of Commerce and other companies. Just do as I say. Although Cool was filled with questions, Sui had a high prestige in New Flyer, so he didn't dare raise any questions. He could only secretly mutter in his heart. After Sui explained a few things to him and the Rudsun branch's development plan changed, Newman quickly came over to ask about it. Seeing that Sui and Kennard were safe, Newman let out a long sigh of relief. Chairman Su, I heard that Ambassador Hakkinen came to your New Flyer's main store and I was scared to death. But it's a good thing that you didn't meet him. No, I met him and we chatted for a while, Sui said with a smile. Newman's expression changed before a look of doubt appeared on his face. He looked over Sui and asked, then, Chairman Su, he didn't cause trouble for you? Sui gave a shrug. Ambassador Hakkinen is a reasonable person. I've already solved the misunderstanding between us. Now that we're fine, we've even become good friends." Newman looked at Sue with a strange look. Ambassador Hakkinen couldn't be related to the word reasonable, no matter what, so how did Sue deal with him? But Newman threw away this question. Anyway, to him, it was fine as long as Sue was fine. When he came to find Sue, he had already received a decree from King Tarek. He was ordered to use his status as the Rudsun Chamber of Commerce's chairman to discuss a comprehensive cooperation with Sue. Receiving this decree meant that King Tarek had completely accepted the Frestek Chamber of Commerce, clearly showing his support for cooperating with the Frestek Chamber of Commerce. This was very good news for Newman. It was because he had introduced the various magic machines produced by the new flyer to the Kingdom of Ruhr that he had been promoted. Now that His Majesty had decided to cooperate with the new flyer, as the person who had been with the new flyer the longest and understood the new flyer the most, as well as being the person who understood the magic machines the most in the Kingdom of Ruhr, he was the person in charge of this cooperation. Based on the king's decree, it could be seen that His Majesty placed great importance on this cooperation. As long as he could handle this cooperation, it was very likely that His Majesty would appreciate him, and he would be promoted in the future. It wasn't even a dream for him to reach the peak of the Kingdom of Ruhr. Thinking of this, Newman's attitude towards Sue became very gentle as he said with a smile, "Chairman Sue, according to His Majesty's decree, our Rudsun Chamber of Commerce will be the official representative of the kingdom to cooperate with your new flyer. May I ask Chairman Sue, which project should we discuss first?" Sue thought about it before pointing to the north. "Let's take a look at your Rudsun Chamber of Commerce's factory first. Chairman Newman, I've heard that the quality of the magic machines produced by your factory is very worrying." Newman's expression became very awkward. Chapter 577. Facts proved that King Tarek's support for the new flyer wasn't just a verbal promise. In the negotiations that Sue represented the new flyer and the Kingdom of Ruhr, the new flyer had obtained a lot of benefit. The various organizations of the Kingdom of Ruhr had all supported the new flyer's requests without any reservations. This was clearly the special approval of King Tarek. In just half a month in the Kingdom of Ruhr, Sue represented the new flyer to sign 3 large cooperation agreements with the Kingdom of Ruhr. First, New Flyer would cooperate with 5 cities in the Kingdom of Ruhr. They would set up 20 household magic machine factories in those 5 cities, which would cover all the household magic machines that New Flyer currently produced. According to the agreement, the Frestek Chamber of Commerce would provide funding and technology, while the Rudsun Kingdom would provide preferential land and policies. In the end, the Frestek Chamber of Commerce would have the absolute advantage with 70% of the profits, as well as having absolute control over the 20 factories. But in return, New Flyer promised to share their technology with the Kingdom of Ruhr. Moreover, they would only be allowed to recruit local workers from the Kingdom of Ruhr, and New Flyer would only provide technical personnel. At the same time, New Flyer would also take on the task of training the workers of the Kingdom of Ruhr in magic machine manufacturing, so they would open a magic machine vocational training school in Karaka City. This magic machine vocational training school would be completely controlled by the Kingdom of Ruhr. New Flyer would only provide information and technology, they didn't need to do anything else. Second, New Flyer reached an agreement with the southernmost port city of the Kingdom of Ruhr, Nissi City. New Flyer would invest in the expansion of Nissi City's port. After the port was built, all the money would belong to Nissi City in name, and Nissi City would have absolute control, but New Flyer would have absolute priority in using 7 of the 10 piers. As long as New Flyer's ships came, the other ships would have to make way for them. Although this wasn't written in the agreement, according to the private discussion between Sue and Nissi City's city lord, Nissi City would keep 2 piers open at any time for New Flyer to use. When Su-yi and Nissi City's city lord were discussing this agreement, Nissi City's city lord was very confused by Su-yi's insistence on this private agreement. King Tarik specifically gave instructions to Nissi City. Although Nissi City was asked to fully cooperate with New Flyer and try to satisfy New Flyer's requests, he emphasized that they must ensure that the port's sovereignty remained in the hands of the Kingdom of Ruhr. Su-yi's suggestion was already a bit of a borderline ball. If the king were to investigate further, then it would very likely be for naught. However, under the attack of New Flyer's gold coins, Nissi City's city lord finally chose to agree to Su-yi's request. In any case, this would still retain the sovereignty of the port. All they needed to do was to make some changes during the actual operation. Although Nissi City was the largest port city in the southern part of the Kingdom of Ruhr, for the signs where shipping was almost non-existent, there wouldn't be many ships docking at Nissi City in a year. As for New Flyer spending 3 million gold coins to build this large port, Nissi City's city lord couldn't understand it at all. Even if King Tarik supported New Flyer's proposal, it was only because building a port would only benefit the Kingdom of Ruhr and wouldn't bring any harm. He also couldn't understand why New Flyer insisted on doing this. The third large cooperation agreement wasn't only related to New Flyer. In this agreement, Su-yi represented New Flyer in requesting the Rudsun Kingdom to open up customs for 30 companies including New Flyer. In other words, it was to open up the internal market of the Kingdom of Ruhr, allowing the products of these 30 companies to freely circulate in the Kingdom of Ruhr. These 30 companies were of course the magic machine companies that had developed in Banta City before coming to the Black Rice Wasteland with New Flyer. It should be said that the last agreement was the one that Su-yi cared about the most. He wasn't worried that the Kingdom of Ruhr wouldn't cooperate with New Flyer, rather he was worried that the Kingdom of Ruhr would protect their own magic machine industry and reject these other companies. But Su-yi had underestimated King Tarik's courage. After hearing Su-yi's request, King Tarik only used 3 days to make a decision. He would open up customs for the 30 companies including New Flyer and give them preferential treatment when entering the Kingdom of Ruhr, ensuring that these products would circulate normally. But King Tarik also made strict rules. Other than the 36 companies in this agreement, the Kingdom of Ruhr wouldn't accept any new companies in the future. At the same time, King Tarik requested that other than the Frestek Chamber of Commerce, the other 35 companies had to be like the Frestek Chamber of Commerce, building at least 2 factories in the Rudsun Kingdom cities. Su-yi naturally agreed to this request. Now that the other companies had lost their largest market in the Lampari Kingdom, they could only rely on the Drake Duchy, the Mirando Duchy, and the Principality of Constantine, which were still immature and small markets, so they were in a very difficult situation. Now that the Kingdom of Ruhr was willing to open their markets to them, it was no different from saving them. Moreover, the cooperation between New Flyer and the Kingdom of Ruhr was more beneficial to New Flyer in terms of profits, so how could the other 35 companies not agree? In addition to these 3 important agreements, Su-yi also represented New Flyer to reach some smaller agreements with the Kingdom of Ruhr. For example, New Flyer would cooperate with the Magic Senate of the Kingdom of Ruhr to research and develop some magic machine-related technologies. For example, the Kingdom of Ruhr would follow New Flyer's request and search for some dwarf tribes in the Kingdom of Ruhr. At the same time, they would try to contact the Elven tribes and let New Flyer recruit them. Another example was, in short, half a month later, after Su-yi and Kennard attended King Tarik's banquet and left Karaka City with Newman, the two of them were very satisfied with their trip to the Kingdom of Ruhr. Su-yi turned back to look at Karaka City from the back window of the magic sedan and couldn't help saying in an emotional voice, "It has to be said, in terms of vision, courage, foresight, and action, King Tarik is even better than His Majesty Lampuri XIII, not to mention King Eric." Kennard on the side shook his head with a bitter smile. "There's no other way, King Eric hasn't shown any outstanding abilities before, and His Majesty Lampuri XIII's favorite successor was Her Highness 70. Moreover, now that he is the king, the Lampari kingdom is controlled by the Stag family, so he can't do anything even if he wants to. Sui gave a laugh. If those fellows keep messing around in the Lampari kingdom, I think the situation will only get worse. Although the rebellion in Kalibo City has been quelled, based on the information from various sources, the situation in the Lampari kingdom is already quite bad. As long as there's a single mistake, there might be internal strife. Kennard was silent for a bit before shaking his head. That isn't certain. Sir Chairman, do you know how the rebellion in Kalibo City was quelled? I've heard that Kalibo City's city lord surrendered, is that true? He did surrender, but the reason why he chose to surrender was because King Eric stopped the kingdom's garrison that Duke Stag had sent out. He said that he wouldn't allow a civil war to happen in the kingdom and wanted to solve this matter peacefully. Then after King Eric promised that he wouldn't pursue this matter, Kalibo City's city lord chose to surrender. Promise? Su Yi's expression became strange, and he couldn't help shaking his head. Kalibo City's city lord isn't a 3-year-old child. He actually believed this promise? Kennard revealed a faint smile. Sir Chairman, King Eric made this promise as both a king and a noble. If he went back on his promise, it would be a serious blow to his prestige. So unless it was necessary, he wouldn't go back on his promise. The facts are like this. Now that Kalibo City's rebellion has been quelled, King Eric doesn't intend to pursue this matter at all. Then again, Kalibo City's rebellion was just a signal from the nobles opposing the Stag family. Now that King Eric has given them the reaction they want, naturally no one will cause trouble. Su Yi slightly knit his brows. If it's like this, doesn't that mean that King Eric is suppressing the Stag family? The Stag family doesn't have any reaction to this? At least the Stag family doesn't have any opinions on this matter right now. Duke Stag not only recalled the second army that was preparing to attack Kalibo City, he also publicly said that the stability of the Lampari kingdom is above all else and that the Stag family will fully support King Eric's decisions. After saying this, Kennard suddenly became excited. Do you know? Sir Chairman, King Eric is much more diligent than before. Not only is he expressing his opinions on the various matters of the kingdom, he is also very strong. He rejected several of Duke Stag's suggestions and is gradually showing the dignity and boldness of a king. I feel that as long as he keeps this up, our Lampari kingdom has hope of becoming stronger. Seeing Kennard's happy smile, Sui didn't have any thoughts of agreeing. First, he was someone who transmigrated from Earth, so he didn't have much of a sense of belonging to the Lampari kingdom. Naturally, he wouldn't be as happy as Kennard about the changes in the Lampari kingdom. Second, he didn't think that King Eric's change would be good. If he really had the ability and boldness, how could the new flyer be forced out of the Lampari kingdom? If he could have absolute control over the Lampari kingdom like King Tarek and support the new flyer's investment in the kingdom of Ruhr would be over 10 million gold coins, which would be placed in the Lampari kingdom. This would be a great help to the development of the Lampari kingdom. The most important problem was that he wanted to suppress the Stag family and balance the Lampari kingdom, trying to control the Lampari kingdom. This idea wasn't bad, but could he really do it? Chapter 578. Eric took a deep breath and closed his eyes to rest for about a minute. When he opened his eyes again, he picked up a towel soaked in cold water from the basin beside him and wiped his face hard twice. Reinvigorated, he continued to review the document. Since he stopped Duke Stag from sending the Second Army to deal with the rebellion in Kalibo City, it was like Eric had suddenly understood something. He had a new understanding of the various government affairs that he felt were messy before, and now he didn't have his own opinions when dealing with them. Accordingly, he relied on Duke Stag less and less. If there wasn't anything important, He wouldn't take the initiative to summon Duke Stagg and would make his own decisions most of the time. Of course, he would also seek guidance from the various nobles and ministers in the kingdom. At the same time, he worked hard to read all sorts of books to strengthen his own learning. He even frequently left the palace to disguise himself and blend into the commoners to observe the situation at close range. In short, he was more and more immersed in his role as the king and was deeply proud and honored to be a king. Of course, he also deeply felt the pressure. The more he understood government affairs, the more Eric regretted the decisions he made before. Based on the data from all sides, the biggest mistake he made was not keeping the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. Half the year had passed and the Lampari Kingdom's current revenue was less than 1,000,000 gold coins. Based on the current trend, by the end of the year, the kingdom's annual revenue would barely surpass 1,000,000 gold coins, and it definitely wouldn't surpass 1.5 million gold coins. Compared to the past few years when it was at least 2 million gold coins a year and even 3 million gold coins the year before last, the current Lampari Kingdom was much poorer. Eric was much more familiar with government affairs now, so naturally he knew why this was the case. When New Flyer was here, 2/3 of the Lampari Kingdom's annual revenue came from the magic machine industry represented by the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce. Just Banta City alone paid close to 1,000,000 gold coins in taxes each year, which was almost equal to the annual revenue of the Lampari Kingdom. It had to be said, New Flyer played the most important role in this. But since New Flyer left the Lampari Kingdom, most of the magic machine companies in Banta City and the Lampari Kingdom led by New Flyer also left the Lampari Kingdom. This caused the influence of the magic machine industry in the Lampari Kingdom to plummet, so naturally the taxes they received greatly decreased. Of course, this was also related to the 10 companies that controlled the magic machine industry in the country. According to the statistics, the 10 chambers of commerce were currently suffering losses due to the downturn in the industry, so the taxes they paid were extremely pitiful. But Eric was very clear that although the magic machine industry in the Lampuri Kingdom had been greatly affected by the Frestec Chamber of Commerce and the other companies leaving, it was impossible for them to lose money in this industry. According to Eric's secret information, the Rockefeller Chamber of Commerce had earned over 200,000 gold coins last month. The Rockefeller Chamber of Commerce had reported a loss of 70,000 gold coins to the business department last month. So not only did the Rockefeller Chamber of Commerce not pay the 80,000 gold coins in taxes, they even received a special subsidy of 30,000 gold coins from the business department. This was equal to the Rockefeller Chamber of Commerce earning close to 120,000 gold coins out of thin air. As for where the 120,000 gold coins went every time he thought of the Stagg family backing the Rockefeller Chamber of Commerce, Eric couldn't help feeling a bit angry. These vermin of the kingdom! Eric scolded in his heart, but then he smiled bitterly and helplessly. Although Duke Stagg had been very obedient to him during this time, not going against any of his ideas and seriously following all his orders, Eric was very clear that his control over the kingdom was far from enough. Before his strength wasn't enough to deal with the stubborn conservative nobles of the Stagg family, Eric could only endure for now. Before this, the only thing he could do was to take back the power that belonged to him from Duke Stagg's hands bit by bit. Do. There was knocking on the door. Eric looked at the door and couldn't help revealing a smile. Now, Duke Stagg had finally learned to knock on the door when entering his room. "Please come in," Eric said in a loud voice. The door was softly pushed open and Duke Stagg walked in. "Your Majesty." Duke Stagg gave Eric a bow. Duke Stagg bowed to Eric with a bow. "May I ask what matter you have for suddenly summoning me?" I've just written a decree, take a look." Eric handed over a piece of paper that hadn't dried yet. Duke Stagg took it and looked it over before deeply knitting his brows. This decree was for the Magic Machine Industry Management Department. The summary of the contents was that Eric wanted to reform the Magic Machine Industry Management Department. He wanted to re-examine every magic machine company in the kingdom under the jurisdiction of the Magic Machine Industry Management Department. The first thing he wanted to do was to examine the qualifications of each company. If a magic machine company wasn't doing well, the Magic Machine Industry Management Department should first think of a way to turn this company's losses into profits. If the Magic Machine Industry Management Department couldn't do this, it would be the management department's negligence. If this company didn't have enough ability and couldn't make a profit, in order to promote the healthy development of the Lampari Kingdom's magic machine industry, the Magic Machine Industry Management Department had the right to ban this company's business and order them to change. On the surface, this decree wasn't wrong. But thinking about it, because the main person in charge of the Magic Machine Industry Management Department was a member of the Stag family, and the 10 companies under the department already controlled the magic machine industry in the Lampari Kingdom, this decree was without a doubt targeted at them. But these companies represented the interests of the conservative nobles led by the Stag family. Eric doing this was clearly targeting them. Duke Stag looked up and narrowed his eyes as he looked at Eric. "Your Majesty, this might not be appropriate." "What's wrong?" "Even if some companies don't have enough ability and can't make a profit, they are still contributing to the development of the kingdom's magic machine industry. If we directly take away their business qualifications, it would be too much of a blow to their enthusiasm. Your Majesty, didn't you say that it would be best if every city in the kingdom could become like Banta City? Since it's like this, we should give them more encouragement." Eric gave a cold laugh in his heart. Duke Stag's so-called encouragement was funding those companies from the kingdom's finances. The kingdom's finances had already fallen, and if they took out a part of it for this so-called encouragement, the kingdom's finances would be stretched even further. After sitting in the king's seat for a long time, Eric was very clear on the importance of money. There were many things that needed to be improved in the Lampari Kingdom, but each one required a large amount of investment. Eric was trying to take back the money that belonged to the kingdom's finances from the 10 companies, or rather from the conservative nobles, which was for the development of the kingdom. The market is like a battlefield. If a company can't make a profit, it means that they aren't suited for this battlefield. Instead of wasting the kingdom's finances to help them survive, it is better to follow the rules of the market and let them die naturally. "Duke Stag, don't you think so?" Eric asked back. Duke Stag silently looked at Eric for a while. When Eric's heart was filled with unease, he suddenly revealed a smile and slowly said with a nod, "Your Majesty is right, we should do this." Hearing this response, Eric almost didn't dare believe his ears. His decree was clearly aimed at the nobles represented by the Stag family. Eric was already prepared for Duke Stag's strong opposition, so he had thought of an excuse ahead of time. He didn't even hesitate to act tough to carry out this decree, but he never thought that Duke Stag would agree. Eric looked at Duke Stag in a daze as all kinds of questions appeared in his heart. "Your Majesty, is there anything else important?" Duke Stag suddenly asked. No. Nothing for now." Eric shook his head as he spoke in a daze. "Since your Majesty doesn't have anything else to say, then I'll be leaving." Even after Duke Stag walked out and closed the door, Eric was still in a daze, unable to react. Why didn't Duke Stag oppose this? Could it be that he really accepted it like this? Eric's heart was filled with surprise and joy. Could it be that this meant that he had finally established the prestige of a king and Duke Stag didn't oppose him? Duke Stag, who walked out, didn't have an excited look on his face, rather he had a very calm look. However, when he saw a little boy running over from the other end of the corridor, a gentle smile appeared on his face. "Your Highness, His Majesty is currently working, you can't disturb him right now." Duke Stag picked up the little boy with a smile as he spoke to him. This little boy was Eric's eldest son, His Highness Prince William. He was only 5 years old this year, but he was already very smart. There were many people who considered him the best choice for the next king. Why is royal father working again? Prince William pouted, looking very dissatisfied. Only knowing how to work every day, is being a king this busy? Duke Stag revealed a smile. That's right, being a king is this busy. Your Highness, do you want His Majesty to rest? Of course I want him to rest. That way he has time to play with me, Prince William said. Then how about we let him have a good rest? Duke Stag's smile was still warm, but there was a cold glow in his narrowed eyes. Chapter 579. After ending the discussion with the Kingdom of Roor, Sue and Kennard left the Kingdom of Roor at the same time. Kennard went to Ampriston Town in the Mirando Duchy to inspect the progress of the new flyer factory there. Sue followed his plan and entered the Lampari Kingdom. It had been close to half a year since he left Banta City. When Sue came back this time, he couldn't help feeling emotional. Although from the outside, Banta City didn't seem to have changed much compared to when he left, it was because it didn't change that Sue was filled with emotions. Thinking of when he and the new flyer were in Banta City would change every day. If they didn't see each other for half a year, it would have completely changed. But now that Sue had left for half a year, Banta City didn't change at all. It could be seen that Banta City had entered a stagnant state in half a year and didn't develop at all. This city that had always been filled with vitality in the past few years had now fallen into a deathly silence. Seeing the cracked falling rain road outside the city because it wasn't maintained at all, Sue couldn't help shaking his head. This road could be considered the most important road in Banta City in the past few years. It was even called the Road to Wealth by many people in Banta City. There were countless horse carriages and magic cars that went back and forth on this road every day, as well as countless people that went back and forth on it. But now, Sue had been standing on the side of this road for 10 minutes, and he had only seen 3 horse carriages running across it. 2 of them were clearly the most ordinary horse carriages, and only one of them was a horse carriage filled with goods. Looking at the falling rain road that connected to the falling rain valley to the west, Sue turned to the east. He could vaguely see a bit of Banta City in the distance, and he couldn't help shaking his head. No matter how close his relationship with this city was, now that he was separated from this city, it was none of his business what this city would become. He had neither the ability nor the right to control it. No matter what the Lampari Kingdom did to Banta City, the consequences would be borne by Banta City and the Lampari Kingdom. Sue didn't need to care. But for Sue, there were some people he had to pay attention to, and that was the students of Baron Ricto Magic Academy. More than 3 years ago, New Flyer set up a special bursary fund at Baron Ricto Magic Academy to support the students and encourage them to continue their studies. Now that more than 3 years had passed, 2 batches of students who had received help from the New Flyer bursary fund had graduated early. Most of them eventually chose to work at the New Flyer. Most of the magicians who were responsible for drawing magic arrays for the various magic machines in New Flyer were students of the Baron Ricto Magic Academy. Now that 3 years had passed, the batch of students who had received the most help from the bursary fund had graduated this year. Sue specially came back to Banta City this time to personally meet these students. The 2 batches of students who had graduated were normal students of the Magic Academy, so to Sue, they weren't that different from the magicians that New Flyer recruited. But the batch of students who had graduated this year had been instructed by Sue since the beginning. While studying magic, they had also been studying mechanical theory. At the same time, they had been studying the combination of magic and mechanical theory for 3 years. In these 3 years, the New Flyer had created many practical opportunities for these students. Before they even graduated from the Baron Ricto Magic Academy, they already had a good foundation in magic machine theory and practice. This kind of magician was what Sue truly valued. Magic mechanical engineers who had both magic and mechanical knowledge. Of course they were just substitute. If they could work at the New Flyer for several years, Sue believed that not long after, they would be able to train magic mechanical engineers who could be of use. Su Yi's actions at the Baron Ricto Magic Academy were very smooth. The Baron Ricto Magic Academy had always received funding from the New Flyer. Even if the New Flyer had left the Lampari Kingdom in the past year, they had never lacked funds. So no matter what, the Baron Ricto Magic Academy had always supported Su Yi and the New Flyer. Now that the New Flyer was reaping the fruits of their labor, the Baron Ricto Magic Academy was filled with joy and didn't have any thoughts of rejecting them. The students were even more excited, they could even be considered impatient. They had received funding from the New Flyer for 3 years. Whether it was emotionally or under the constraints of the original agreement, they had already confirmed that they would work at the New Flyer after graduation. Moreover, they had also learned a lot about mechanical engineering in the past 3 years while studying magic. This made them fully aware that the most suitable job for them was to work on magic machines. And when it came to magic machines, which company in the signs could be compared to the New Flyer? The New Flyer's salary was high, the treatment was good, and the benefits were even more varied. Being able to work at the New Flyer was the dream of many people. Now that they had the opportunity to directly choose to work at the New Flyer, no one would think of rejecting it. Therefore, almost all the students who had received funding from the New Flyer were extremely welcoming towards Su Yi's arrival. Usually, the graduation ceremony of the students would be a little sad, and there would even be some sentimental little girls who would cry because of the departure of their classmates. However, the graduation ceremony of Baron Ricto Magic Academy this year was a scene of joy and harmony, which was very different from the previous years. However, this peaceful atmosphere had been destroyed by a group of fully armed Banta City guards who had suddenly charged into the school. "What are you doing?" Seeing that the one leading the city guards was the Banta City Guard Commander Chopin, the Baron Ricto Magic Academy's principal Fording was shocked. What had happened that the commander of the City Guard army would personally come out? However, Chopin completely ignored Fording's question. He turned around and his eyes locked onto Su Yi, who was surrounded by a group of students. With a wave of his hand, the city guards behind him came forward and pushed aside the surrounding students, surrounding Su Yi in the center. Looking at the surrounding city guards who were on high alert and filled with hostility, everyone was stunned. Su Yi was even more confused. He looked at Chopin in surprise and asked, "Commander Chopin, what are you doing? Could it be that I've done something wrong?" Although the Shinfei merchants had been forced to leave the Lampari Kingdom by the Magic Machine Industry Management Department, this was the department's problem. Whether it was the New Flyer or Su Yi, they couldn't find any fault with this. Not to mention that the Lampari Kingdom's officials weren't willing to make things this awkward, so Su Yi and the New Flyer could be considered to have peacefully left the Lampari Kingdom. As for the Lampari Kingdom's officials, Su Yi was still a citizen of the Lampari Kingdom, and the New Flyer was still a company of the Lampari Kingdom. If Su Yi wanted to return to the Lampari Kingdom, it was completely up to him. He had returned several times in the past without any problems. So why did this suddenly happen today? Chopin's expression was serious as he loudly said to Su Yi, "Su Yi, I advise you not to resist in vain and obediently surrender. Otherwise, we have the right to kill you on the spot." "Kill me on the spot?" Su Yi couldn't help smiling. He turned to look at the city guards around him and shook his head as he said, "I say, Commander Chopin, you should know my magic power, don't you think it's funny saying these words?" Chopin obviously understood this, so his expression was slightly nervous. He paused and shouted, "Su Yi, I'm warning you. No matter how strong your magic strength is, you're only one person. You can't contend against the entire Lampari Kingdom. If you're smart, surrender obediently and you might be able to keep your life. If you really dare to resist, then don't blame me for being ruthless." Su Yi shrugged and looked around at the dean, director, teachers, and students of Baron Ricto Magic Academy. He found that they were just like him and had a baffled expression. I say. Commander Chopin, you keep saying that you want to arrest me. Shouldn't you at least tell me what crime I've committed? You want to arrest me without any reason. That's not justifiable, right? Chopin's expression sank. Sui, you've committed the most serious crime of treason. It was originally considered a heinous crime, but His Majesty the King has given you a special favor and exempted you from the death penalty. As long as you immediately come with us to see His Majesty the King, you can keep your life. As soon as his voice fell, there was an uproar around. Treason? When did Sui commit treason? Sui was even more baffled. I committed treason? What treason? When you see His Majesty the King, you'll naturally know the specific crime. Right now, you just need to obediently surrender. Chopin sternly said, I'm warning you again, don't try to resist. Otherwise, you'll be charged with treason and will be wanted by the entire kingdom. All of the businesses that New Flyer has left in the kingdom will be confiscated by the kingdom's parliament. So I advise you to think it over carefully. Sui sneered in his heart. After all this time, these guys from the Lampari kingdom even wanted to take over the businesses that he had left behind. They really didn't leave him any leeway. Then he felt that it was a bit strange. Previously, the Lampari kingdom's attitude towards him and the New Flyer had always been very lenient. Although they pushed him aside, they never pushed him to the brink. Even a few months ago, the Lampari kingdom's attitude towards the New Flyer had clearly eased up. Last month, in 2 cities, they even took the initiative to ask the New Flyer to build a joint venture factory. All of these signs showed that the Lampari kingdom's officials wanted to restore their relationship with the New Flyer. Sui guessed that King Eric's attitude had changed, which was why there were these changes. But now, the sudden charge of treason clearly wanted to completely block Sui and the New Flyer's path back to the Lampari kingdom. Could it be that King Eric's attitude had suddenly changed? Chopin didn't give Sui more time to think. As soon as his voice fell, he waved his hand and the city guards surrounding Sui stepped forward. Looking at their posture, they were clearly prepared to directly restrain Sui. Sui frowned. The magic in his body quickly circulated as he prepared to make a move. It was impossible for him to obediently let these city guards capture him. He wasn't sure of King Eric's current attitude. He could still freely advance and retreat here, but if he really went to Anvilmar City, there were enough people in Anvilmar City to restrain him. But this created another problem. It was impossible for the Lampari kingdom to not be aware of his magic strength, yet they sent a small group of city guards to claim that they wanted to capture him. This was clearly an impossible task. Then what was the Lampari kingdom thinking? Could it be that they simply wanted to force him out of the Lampari kingdom? While Suyi's mind was filled with countless thoughts, suddenly the sound of horse hooves could be heard outside the school. A moment later, a neat row of cavalry galloped in from the school's gate. Seeing the face of the cavalry leader, Sui was stunned. It can't be? Why is she here? Chapter 580. The leading cavalry was the captain of Seveni's personal guards, Murloc. When the New Flyer worked with Seveni's personal guards to clean up the beastmen on the Black Rice Wasteland, the captain of the 500 Seveni's personal guards was him. Sui had met him several times, so he knew that he had a high position in Seveni's heart, otherwise she wouldn't have given him full responsibility for such an important operation. After the operation on the Black Rice Wasteland, Murloc had led his team back to Seveni's territory. Now that he suddenly appeared here, there was only one possibility, which was that Seveni was also here. As expected, as soon as this thought appeared in Suyi's mind, a pure white magic sedan quickly drove through the gates of Baron Ricto Magic Academy. It went through the path opened by Murloc's cavalry and came to the side of the city guards around Sui. It only stopped when it almost hit one of the city guards. Sui was stunned. There was no doubt that this magic sedan was the one he gave Seveni, but with Seveni's personality, She was very calm when driving the magic sedan, so how could she be this wild like this? Could it be that it wasn't Seveni in the car? But when the door opened, Seveni came out. After seeing Seveni's face, Sue-E was stunned again. Normally Seveni would have a warm smile on her face, making people feel close to her at first glance. But now Seveni had a rare cold expression. Her face was like ice and there was a bone-chilling chill in her eyes. After getting out of the car, Seveni's cold eyes looked over the city guards surrounding Sue-E. There was a complicated look on her face as she coldly roared, "Move aside." The city guards looked at each other in blank dismay. Even if they didn't recognize Seveni, just based on the formation of the cavalry and the strong might coming from Seveni, they knew that this young girl in front of them definitely wasn't a normal person. Chopin on the side complained in his heart. Of course he recognized Seveni, and was even more clear on the relationship between Seveni and Sue-E. Although he didn't have any hopes of capturing Sue-E today, if Her Highness Seveni suddenly interfered, it would be hard for him. After hesitating a bit, Chopin came over and gave a cough. He revealed an awkward expression as he said to Seveni, "Your Highness, move." Seveni coldly cut him off. Chopin and Sue-E were both stunned. Chopin never thought that Her Highness would have such a strong attitude, but Sue-E was surprised that Seveni would have this kind of attitude. With Sue-Yi's understanding of Seveni, she wasn't someone who did things forcefully. She had a gentle personality and was known for being kind to people. Based on how long Sue-E had been in contact with her, this was reflected even more. There were many times when Seveni didn't seem like a princess because she was too gentle, so she lacked a bit of dignity. But now, the cold-faced Seveni revealed a different kind of dignity, revealing the style of the royal family. Chopin swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but Seveni suddenly raised her hand and the cavalry behind her raised their weapons, aiming at the city guards surrounding Sue-E. The faces of the city guards turned pale. They were just normal city guards of Banta City. Their battle strength couldn't compare to the regular army of the Lampari Kingdom, so naturally they couldn't compare to the elite royal guards. If Her Highness Seveni really gave the order, they definitely wouldn't be able to resist. Moreover, even if Her Highness Seveni really gave the order to kill them, they could only die in vain. There definitely wouldn't be anyone who would cry out for them. It was a good thing that Chopin was very clear on this fact. Seeing the deep chill on Her Highness Seveni's face, his expression changed several times before finally giving a sigh. He lowered his head and waved his hand at the city guards surrounding Sue-E. It was like the city guards had been pardoned, moving aside like the tide. They all moved far away from Seveni and Sue-E. Seveni walked in front of Sue-E, who was in a daze, and said with a serious look, "Come with me, let's leave this place quickly." "Why?" Sue-E looked over Seveni twice, like it was his first time seeing her. "Did something happen? I have quite a few things to take care of this time. Not to mention that if I leave like this, wouldn't I be committing treason?" "Don't ask why." Seveni shook her head. "I can only tell you that the elites of the kingdom's guards are on their way here. No matter how strong your magic is, you can't stop the attacks of over 1,000 people. So if you want to live, you have to leave with me right now." Sue-E deeply knit his brows. He didn't understand why the Lampari Kingdom's officials would suddenly change their attitude and kill him like this. What he didn't understand even more was why Seveni's reaction was so intense, not hesitating to use her personal guards to protect him. Although the two had a good relationship, Seveni doing this was equal to helping a traitor like him. Even if she was a noble princess, this was still an unforgivable crime. Seveni doing this was without a doubt sacrificing too much. "It doesn't matter." Seveni gave a sigh as a trace of sadness appeared in her eyes. Seveni revealed a sad look. "It's fine to give up the identity of the princess. Or rather, it's better to give it up." Sue-E was even more confused, but Seveni didn't let him keep asking. She turned to get into the magic sedan, and signaled for Sue to get in as well. Seeing Seveny's determined eyes, Sue hesitated a bit before turning to say a few words to Baron Ricto Magic Academy's principal Fooding before sitting in the passenger seat. After Sue sat down, Seveny skillfully started the magic sedan. With a turn of the steering wheel, the magic sedan turned and quickly drove out of Baron Ricto Magic Academy, disappearing on the road outside the academy. The cavalry led by Murloc also formed a neat formation and followed closely behind. Hashtag. When it was close to noon, a pure white magic sedan drove out of Samara Town. It charged up a slope and entered the black rice wasteland. The pure white magic sedan suddenly turned to the right and drove off the road, coming to a high cliff beside the road. Seveny got out of the car and came to the edge of the cliff. She looked in the direction of Samara Town with a complicated look on her face. Sue also got out of the car and came to Seveny's side. After looking at Seveny for a while, he thought for a bit before asking in a soft voice, "Seveny, did something happen? You don't seem right today." Seveny kept looking in the direction of Samara Town for a while before shaking her head. "No, it's nothing." "Is that so?" Of course Sue didn't believe her. If it wasn't for something, how could Seveny's style suddenly change? Something must have happened and it must be very serious. Otherwise, with Seveny's calm and determined personality, it was impossible for her to change this much. But Seveny clearly didn't want to talk about it, so Sue naturally wouldn't keep asking. He just silently stood by Seveny's side, looking in the direction of Samara Town with her. Based on Seveny's expression, she shouldn't be looking at Samara Town, but rather the entire Lampari kingdom. But why was her expression filled with determination? Thinking of what she said before leaving the Baron Ricto Magic Academy, Sue's heart skipped a beat. Could it be Seveny also wanted to leave the Lampari kingdom? Seveny suddenly turned her head. "Sue, how is your company's development of the magic boats?" Sue was surprised. He never thought that Seveny would ask about the magic boats at this time. It's progressing quite smoothly. The first magic boat has already completed a 500-kilometer test run, so it's qualified to be put into use. Next month, our company will make 2 more magic boat. If nothing unexpected happens, it's very likely that we'll have 5 magic boats by the end of the year. Sue replied. "These magic boats have the ability to go out to sea, right?" Seveny asked. "Yes. Although it hasn't been tested yet, based on the data, it shouldn't be a problem for these magic boats to go out to sea," Sue replied. Finally he couldn't take the confusion in his heart and asked, "Seveny, could it be that you also want to go out to sea like Leslie?" Seveny's lips curled into a bitter smile. "If possible, I really want to leave Signs, the further the better. It would be best if I could find an island far away from here and spend the rest of my life there." Hearing the disheartened tone in Seveny's voice, Sue was very surprised. He had always appreciated Seveny's strong personality, so just what had happened that made her have such negative thoughts about hiding from the world? After thinking for a bit, Sue shook his head and said, "I'm afraid this wish can't be fulfilled for now. Our company's magic boats need to be used by ourselves first. According to the plan, our company needs to build a fleet of at least 20 magic boat. To achieve this goal, with our company's current production capacity, it'll take at least 3 years. 3 years? Seveny slightly knit her brows. That is still too long. Sue gave a shrug. 3 years wasn't long at all, rather it was very fast. Building ships was completely different from making other things. Even if the tonnage of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's magic boats wasn't big, it would take a long time to build one. Moreover, Leslie has asked me to order a batch of magic boats, so I think it'll take a year or 2 to fulfill his order. When we have extra magic boats for you, I think it'll be at least 5 years later," Sue said. 5 years? Seveny looked at Sue and after thinking for a bit, she continued, "Then this matter can only be delayed for now." Sui, can you help me with something? Sui immediately said with a smile, no problem. As long as it's something I can do, you can tell me. Alright, Sui, lend me a place to stay. Seeing the helplessness in Seveni's eyes, Sui was stunned and couldn't speak for a while. Chapter 581. In autumn, for other places on the signs, the weather would naturally turn cold. But for the Principality of Constantine, it was no different from summer. It was still hot and humid. Whether it was on Earth or in the Lampari Kingdom, Sui didn't have much time or opportunity to swim in the water. But after coming to the Principality of Constantine, because of the weather and the fact that he lived by the sea, Sui gradually developed the habit of swimming in the sea. He even specially selected a section of the beach and invested some money to develop it into something like a bathing area. In their free time, the workers of the new flyer factory would often bring their families to the bathing area to relax. The Principality of Constantine's climate was always hot and humid, so the bathing area was very popular and lively at almost any time. Of course, Sui naturally wouldn't squeeze into the bathing area with a large group of people. Not far from the cliff of his manor, another beach was opened up. It could be considered his private beach. Other than occasionally going to the bathing area to have fun with the masses, Sui spent most of his time here swimming and relaxing. Today was a sunny day. After finishing his work, Sui came to this private beach again. Steele happened to be free today, so she, Liz, Linda, and Freya also came to the beach to play. Freya was only 1.5 years old, so naturally she couldn't go into the sea. But she was very interested in the soft sand on the beach, whether it was deep or shallow. She was very happy whether she walked unsteadily or grabbed sand and piled it up randomly. Looking at Freya's bright smile, Sui suddenly sighed. It's still easier for children to be happy. Steele glanced at him. What? Thinking of Her Highness again? I just asked her, but she still doesn't want to come. Sui shook his head. I really don't know what happened to her. Why did she suddenly become so depressed? She had been here for more than 2 months, but she was still hiding in the house all day long. If this goes on, I'm worried that she'll be bored to death. Steele frowned slightly. I've talked to her a few times, but she's never been willing to tell me. It seemed that what she encountered must be very serious, and it was not convenient for her to tell outsiders. If I'm not wrong, I'm afraid it has something to do with the royal family. Royal family? Sui frowned. There aren't many people in the royal family of the Lampari Kingdom. She doesn't intend to fight for the throne, so Eric naturally won't trouble her. What's she worried about? I don't know. However, the royal family is the darkest place of all the nobles. Her Highness grew up in the royal family, yet she was able to develop such a sunny, gentle, and upright personality. This is very rare. This should be Lampuri 13th protecting her well. Sui said with a sigh. It's a pity that she's become like this now. I really am curious about what happened. This is a secret of the royal family. Her Highness definitely won't tell anyone, so don't think about it. Steele shook her head. If you want to help her, just give her enough time and let her adjust herself. Her Highness has a strong personality. I believe that she will definitely walk out of this shadow. There's no other way, we can only patiently wait. Sui took a deep breath and shook his head, throwing away the worry for Seveni in his head. His eyes fell onto Steele, and he revealed a lecherous smile. Hey Steele, this swimsuit really looks great on you. When Steele came to the beach with Sui before, she was wearing a traditional swimsuit. It was very inconvenient to enter the water, so Steele wasn't interested in swimming. But now she was wearing a new waterproof swimsuit developed by the Nightsong tribe and the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. Moreover, it was a tight-fitting swimsuit, so not only was it convenient to enter the water, it also completely revealed her figure. Although she had already given birth to a child, Still's figure was still close to perfect. After wearing this swimsuit, her curves became even more pronounced. Adding in her bright golden hair and her beautiful face that was filled with the aura of the sun, even if Sue and her were an old married couple, he was still attracted to her. Hearing Sue's praise, Steele didn't reveal any shyness. Instead, she stuck out her chest and revealed her beautiful figure to Sue. This swimsuit is really comfortable to wear. I have to say, the elves have indeed mastered a lot of strange things. If you didn't insist on cooperating with them, I'm afraid you wouldn't have obtained so many valuable things from them. Sue smiled proudly, of course. Every race had its own value. What's more, the elves have ruled this continent for tens of thousands of years. Of course, they have some special knowledge that we humans don't have. Actually, I feel more sorry for the halfling race that has already disappeared. From various documents, the halfling race actually had a very high theoretical and practical foundation in the field of machinery. If the halfling race were still on this continent, I would definitely strive to cooperate with them. I believe it would be very helpful for the development of magic machinery. Steele turned her head to look at the sea and raised her finger to the depths of the sea. Legend has it that the halfling race didn't completely disappear. Instead, they left this continent on their own mechanical ship and went to the depths of the endless sea. It's said that there is another continent on the other side of the endless sea, so the halfling race might have already taken root on that continent. The depths of the endless sea. Sue looked into the distance and revealed a faint smile. When our company can develop the magic boats that can sail the deep sea, I will definitely organize a fleet and explore the depths of the endless sea. Steele, do you believe it? If the fleet sets off from here and heads west, they will come back from behind us, which is the east coast of the signs. How is that possible? Steele's eyes opened wide in surprise. If they keep going west, how could they come back from the east? Do you remember what I told you before? Actually, we live on a giant ball, so if we keep going west, we will go around the ball and come back from the other side. That's just your guess, right? Steele said with knit brows. Although when you say that the ship will gradually sink and disappear, with the mast disappearing in the end, this is very reasonable. But when you say that we live on a ball, that is too unbelievable. Why don't we fall? Sue laughed. This should be the problem that every main character who transmigrated to a less technologically advanced world would encounter, but it really was troublesome to explain this problem. Moreover, if he threw out this theory without any proof, it would be strange if people believed him. When I really organize this ocean exploration fleet, I will prove it to you. Sue looked into the distance before looking up at the sky. Actually, compared to the magic boat, the faster and more convenient way to travel around the world was to ride the magic airship. Because the magic airship didn't travel on the sea, it wouldn't be affected by the waves, so it was safer and more stable. But if they flew high up in the sky, the weather would be affected. If they met a storm on the sea, it would be very dangerous. If they wanted to travel around the world like on Earth, they were still far from being able to do it now. The magic airship project that Evita was mainly in charge of was a bit slower than the magic boat. Up to now, they had only built a medium-sized magic airship that could carry less than 5 tons. Moreover, because they hadn't completed the 1,000-kilometer test that Sue had set, they were still in the experimental stage and hadn't been able to carry people or cargo yet. This was because the magic airship was flying high up in the sky. If the magic ship broke down, it could still float on the sea, but if the magic airship broke down, it would fall from the sky and the people on it would only have a path of death. So Evita had been very careful when developing the magic airship. She wanted every detail to be perfect, and she had to test it several hundred times before passing it. Naturally, this slowed down the development of the magic airship by quite a bit. Sue was very supportive of her attitude. The various magic machines that the new flyer had developed hadn't had any major quality issues yet, but that didn't mean that there wouldn't be any in the future. No matter what, it wasn't wrong to be strict. not to mention on such an important magic airship. When he thought of the problem with the magic airship, Sui suddenly heard a buzzing sound from behind him. Turning to look, he saw a shadow floating over the cliff behind them. It stopped right above Sui and Steel, covering Sui and Steel. Why are they here? Steel looked up in surprise at the magic airship above them. Perhaps they saw it when they were doing experiments. Sui replied before seeing a figure suddenly jump out of the magic airship. Sui and Steel were both shocked. Jumping down from such a high place, even if it was a soft beach below, they would still be smashed into a meat patty. But the two of them quickly reacted. The magic airship was still in the experimental stage, so Sui had strict requirements for Evita. Those who could board the magic airship had to be magicians who could fly. But even if they thought of this, the two of them still activated their magic at the same time and prepared themselves. Once they found that the situation was bad, they would naturally make a move to save that person. Chapter 582. Facts proved that the two of them didn't need to worry. At first, the man was falling at an extremely fast speed, as if he was free-falling. Halfway through, he gradually slowed down and finally landed as lightly as a feather. That person stood still and gave a laugh to Sui and Steel. It was Akali. Steel snappily glared at her. "Do you want to scare us to death?" Suddenly jumping down from above. "I wanted to be a bit faster," Akali replied with a smile. She took out a small square box from her pocket and pressed it before saying to the box, "Hey, Evita, Sir Chairman and Steel are here. Do you want to come down as well?" Evita's voice came from the box. "I don't need, you can report to Sir Chairman. I'll keep doing the flight test. Do you want me to come pick you up later?" "There's no need to pick me up. But you really aren't coming down? The weather is good today, it's very suitable for swimming. Didn't you bring your swimsuit? It would be a pity if you didn't use it." "You?" Evita's voice was a bit embarrassed. I just brought it along, I didn't want to swim." Sui couldn't help smiling as he took the magic communicator from Akali's hands. "Alright, Evita, you can come down too. Let the researchers take care of the experiment first. I have something to ask you." Evita on the other side was silent for a bit before a weak voice came out. Alright." After a while, the magic airship flew over and Evita floated down from the sky. Seeing that Sui was only wearing a pair of swimming trunks and was half naked, Evita's face turned a bit red. She calmed herself and asked Sui, "Chairman, is there a problem?" Before Sui could reply, Akali suddenly took Evita's backpack. She opened it and took out a swimsuit, shaking it in front of Evita with a proud look. "Hee, and you said you didn't want to come. Look, the swimsuit is already prepared." Evita's face turned red. She wanted to snatch the backpack and swimsuit from Akali's hands, but Akali dodged. Seeing the faint smile on Sui's face, Evita said with embarrassment and anger, "I just put it in my bag, I didn't think." Sui laughed. "Alright, since we're already here, we might as well take the opportunity to rest. Evita, Akali, go change into your swimsuits in the room over there. I'm giving you guys a day off today." Akali cheered, but she didn't rush to the house that Sui had specially prepared for her. Instead, she unbuttoned her shirt. Sui, Steel, and Evita jumped in fright. When they were about to stop her, they saw that she had already taken off her shirt, revealing a swimsuit inside. Sui couldn't help finding this funny. "I say, Akali, it can't be that you already planned this, right? You're wearing a swimsuit inside, don't you feel uncomfortable?" "Not at all." Akali bent down and took off her skirt as well. Sui then realized that she was wearing the bikini-style swimsuit that he had suggested to Chairman Vincent. Although the culture of the Science Continent was rather open, swimsuits like the bikini that exposed a lot were still a bit advanced for the people of the Science Continent. Chairman Vincent had said that there wouldn't be many people who would choose this kind of swimsuit. He didn't think that Akali would only buy one and wear it out so openly. Seeing Su Yi's gaze land on her, Akali smiled and turned around. What do you think? Mr. Chairman, do I look good in this swimsuit? It does look good. But… Su Yi nodded and held back his laughter as he continued, Akali, this kind of swimsuit is suitable for that kind of figure. A rather voluptuous girl, I'm afraid it doesn't suit you. Voluptuous figure? Akali looked down at her body in confusion and found that her chest was flat. She immediately understood the meaning behind Su Yi's words. Even though she had always been carefree and didn't have any scruples in front of Su Yi, she still couldn't help but blush when Su Yi suddenly said this. Adding on the fact that Su Yi was saying that her chest was too small, she was even more embarrassed and angry. She couldn't help but fiercely glare at Su Yi. She wanted to retort, but her eyes couldn't help but land on Steele's chest next to Su Yi. Looking at the two lumps on Steele's chest, Akali could only snort angrily. But when she turned her head and saw Linda and Liz playing with Freya in the distance, they also had large breasts. She couldn't help but feel a deep sense of defeat. Akali clenched her teeth and finally couldn't help but ask Su Yi, Mr. Chairman, do you like girls with bigger breasts? Hearing this question, Evita's face that had just calmed down blushed again. Steele looked at Su Yi with interest and waited for his answer. Well, from the public's point of view, girls with bigger breasts are naturally more popular. But there's a saying in my hometown that small breasts are a rare resource, so there are also many people who like them. Su Yi nodded and patted Akali's shoulder encouragingly. Don't worry, girls like you are also very popular. Akali rolled her eyes. I'm not asking if other people like them. I'm only asking you, Mr. Chairman, do you like girls like me or Steele? You can't compare. Steele is my wife, of course I like her more. I'm not asking about people, I'm asking about this. Akali poked Steele's chest with her finger. This. From an objective point of view, I still prefer girls like Steele. Su Yi thought for a moment and answered honestly. I knew it. Akali turned around angrily and walked to the beach. She jumped in and swam far away in the blink of an eye. Su Yi, don't you know how to be a bit more tactful? Steele glared at Su Yi. This hurts Akali's heart too much. Su Yi smiled and didn't explain. Turning to see that Evita was still in a daze, Su Yi urged her, Evita, go and change into your swimsuit. The magic airship should be doing a 200-kilometer cruise test this time, so it might take an entire afternoon to finish. You can have a good rest today. Evita thought for a bit before shaking her head. No, if something happens after I change into my swimsuit, it won't be convenient for me to rush over. I'll just bask in the sun and rest on the beach. Right, Sir Chairman, you said you had something to ask me, what is it? Seeing that Evita insisted, Su Yi didn't force her. Although Evita had a gentle personality, she wouldn't change her mind once she decided on something. This was something that Su Yi was very clear on after being with her for a long time. But he only said that he had something to ask Evita to come down, but he actually didn't have anything to ask. Now that Evita was asking this, Su Yi's mind quickly turned and he really did think of a few things that he cared about. What is the current limit of the medium-sized magic airship that you're currently developing? When it came to professional matters, the strange expression on Evita's face disappeared and she became focused. We haven't tested the limit yet, but according to the data, it should be around 800 to 1,000 kilometers. Then can this limit be increased? For example, I need a magic airship that can cruise over 3,000 kilometers, is that possible? Su Yi asked. In theory, as long as you increase the size of the magic crystal cabin and increase the duration of the power, it can be done. Evita thought about it before replying, but this will affect the entire mechanical design of the magic airship. Moreover, as the magic airship operates for a long time, part of the magic array that provides power will be damaged. If it's a distance of 3,000 kilometers, the magic array will need to operate for over 50 hours, which is a very serious test for the magic array. Are you afraid that the magic array won't be able to withstand the high load and will collapse? Yes. Evita nodded. This problem has actually appeared with the other magic machines that our company has developed. For example, the 2 batches of magic fans that our company sold when we were established, we've been using them for close to 4 years now, and it's hard for the magic array to maintain normal operation, so there are many problems with them. After saying this, Evita looked at Sui and hesitated to speak. What? Just speak if you have a problem, Sui said. Sir Chairman, because the Lampari Kingdom has sealed all the businesses of our company in the Lampari Kingdom, our company can't provide after-sales service to the customers who have bought our company's magic machines. According to my estimates, the household magic machines that have been in use for over 3 years have reached the end of their lifespan, so it's very likely that there will be a collective product quality problem. If we don't take care of it properly, it might greatly affect the reputation of our company. Your worries are very reasonable. But Sui gave a bitter laugh. I was almost considered a traitor by the Lampari Kingdom and wanted by the Lampari Kingdom. The new flyer has been completely rejected by the Lampari Kingdom. It's fine for other places, but for the after-sales service of the Lampari Kingdom, there's no good way to solve it for now. Evita was very clear on this situation, so she could only give a sigh when she heard this. She shook her head and also couldn't think of a good method. Sui frowned and thought for a while. All right, no matter what, the problem you're worried about is very important. I'll do my best to solve it, and if it doesn't work, I'll explain the problem to the customers who have bought our company's products in the Lampari Kingdom and compensate them as much as possible. It's very easy to destroy a company's reputation, but to build it up and maintain it, we have to pay a price. After receiving Sui's promise, Evita seemed to have put down a large stone in her heart and a happy smile appeared on her face. Sir Chairman, I knew that you wouldn't be as cold-blooded as the other merchants. Sui shrugged and pointed at Akali who was struggling in the sea. That might not be the case, at least Akali must be cursing me for being cruel and heartless. Evita and Steele looked at each other and laughed. Chapter 583. Sui had different positions in his heart for the magic airship and the magic boat, so naturally his requirements were different. For the magic boat, he mainly focused on transporting goods, so his main requirement for the magic boat was that it could carry a lot of cargo and he didn't care that much about its speed. But for the magic airship, he wanted it to be fast and mainly used for transporting people as well as transporting goods. Moreover, in terms of long-term strategy, the magic airship had a very important strategic meaning. It would definitely take on more important tasks in the future, so he had higher requirements for the magic airship. He mainly focused on power, safety, and endurance. After discussing this with Evita, Sui gave Evita a clear direction for her research. He asked her to increase the endurance of the magic airship while also increasing its speed. Sui's request for the magic airship was that it should be able to fly faster than a great magician's flying magic. For great magician Camilla, if he used all his flying magic, he could even surpass 50 kilometers an hour. But the magic airship was only 40 kilometers an hour, which was far from meeting Sui's requirements. Of course, Evita said that the magic airship's speed had a lot of room to increase. Whether it was the power output of the magic array or the mechanical structure of the magic airship, it could all increase its flying speed. Of course, with the current development speed of the magic airship, it was still far from being able to reach the exaggerated speed of over 1,000 kilometers an hour on Earth. After asking about the magic airship, Sui changed the topic to another project that Evita was mainly in charge of. This project was magic crystal refinement. Evita had already developed several magic arrays that could be used to refine the magic crystals mined in normal mines into high-concentration magic crystals. These high-concentration magic crystals were already used in the various magic machines that New Flyer made. For example, the magic sedans, the magic armored vehicles, the magic boats, and the magic planes were all used in large amounts. Because the concentration of magic was higher, the effect of the magic array was better, so naturally the magic output was much better than using normal magic crystals. However, there were many problems with this kind of high-concentration magic crystal. One of them was that this high-concentration magic crystal wasn't stable enough, so it wasn't suitable to be stored for long periods of time. Moreover, when it was used, it was easy for the density to decrease and it would affect the output, causing accidents to occur. Evita's current research on refining magic crystals was to increase the stability of the new magic crystals, and she had some results. According to the results of the latest research, Evita's newly designed magic crystal refining array could already store the high-concentration magic crystals at room temperature for over a month without any magic leakage or instability. This was even more valuable than ordinary magic crystals. In terms of quality, a traditional high-grade magic crystal didn't even have 1/10 of the magic power contained in a high-concentration magic crystal of the same size. To Evita, normal magic crystals could be eliminated because they had a very important problem, which was that they were too big and took up too much space. If they used normal magic crystals, they had to leave enough magic crystals for the cabin, which made the design of the magic machine much more difficult. Take the magic airship as an example. The current medium-sized magic airship was considering the use of normal magic crystals, so the supply cabin was very big. Chairman, you just said that you want to increase the endurance and speed of the magic airship. One of the methods is to expand the cabin and the other method is to change to using high-concentration magic crystals. The power output is the foundation of a large magic machine, so changing the power supply will affect the entire magic airship. Do you think you can design a suitable magic airship for this? Sui asked. Of course. Evita confidently replied, actually, using normal magic crystals to leave a large cabin will affect the mechanical design and power design of the magic airship. If we use high-concentration magic crystals, it will greatly reduce the difficulty of this design. I can understand. Sui nodded before asking, then what are your concerns? Since you've considered this, why didn't you come up with a corresponding solution when designing the magic airship? Evita looked at Sui and hesitated a bit. Chairman, actually, this isn't my concern, rather it should be yours. My concern? What am I worried about? Sui was surprised. Actually, the Magic Machine Development Center and our Academy of Magic are both very strange. Right now, the research on high-concentration magic crystals is already mature, so I think we can put them into production. Moreover, it can improve the use of many magic machines that our company has developed. But up to now, you've only asked for a small part of the magic machines to use high-concentration magic crystals. So, I'm very curious, what are you worried about, Chairman? Sui looked at Evita in surprise. This is your opinion. It should be the opinion of our Academy of Magic and the Magic Machine Development Center. The technology is mature, but the chairman isn't willing to put it into production, so everyone is very curious. Oh, I never thought that you would care about this. Sui revealed a smile. The reason why I'm doing this is because the time isn't right yet. Evita, have you thought of a problem? If our company began promoting high-concentration magic crystals, would magic crystals still be as cheap and unimportant as they are now? Evita thought for a bit before revealing a look of understanding. No wonder the chairman has been buying those worthless magic crystal ores. You've already considered this problem. Because I firmly believe that magic machines will become popular on the continent. When everyone uses all kinds of magic machines, the demand for magic crystals on the continent will become very high. The so-called market and price were set according to demand. Right now the magic crystals are so cheap that no one cares about them, but in the future, the magic crystals will become a very important resource. Even all the countries on the continent will wage war for this resource. When Sui said this, he was naturally thinking about the oil resources on Earth. Although magic crystals could be seen all over the signs, so much that it made people numb. But when magic machines became popular, because of the large demand, resources that could be seen everywhere would become very popular. Sui saying that the countries on the continent would wage war for magic crystals wasn't an exaggeration at all. Evita didn't transmigrate from Earth like Sui, so of course she didn't know how important these resources were to the countries. So she couldn't understand the situation that Sui described. But this didn't stop her from believing Sui's words. This Sir Chairman didn't have a hobby of making irresponsible remarks. Countless facts had proven that Sui's foresight was far better than anyone else's. In the afternoon, Akali swam a few laps in the sea and even built a sand castle with Freya. Then she lay down on the beach to bask in the sun, completely relaxing for the entire afternoon. Evita and Sui were sitting on the beach, enjoying the sea breeze and listening to the sound of the waves, but they were discussing technology that ruined the scenery. Akali wanted to pull the two of them into the sea several times, but she was firmly rejected by the two of them. She could only pull Steel into the sea with her. When the sun set over the horizon, the light of the setting sun dyed the sea red, while also covering the entire beach in a layer of red light. Feeling the sea breeze that was a bit cold, Sui realized that time had passed without him noticing, so he ended his conversation with Evita. "Alright, Evita, let's end it here for today. Go back and properly study the problems I mentioned just now, try to develop the magic airship that I want as soon as possible. As for the other problems, you can prepare them first. When the time is right, I hope that the Academy of Magic can immediately come up with a plan." "Alright." Evita nodded and stood up with Sui. Seeing that Akali had swum back, she took out the magic communicator and pressed a switch. After around 10 minutes, Akali had just dried herself when the magic airship that brought them here flew over the sea and stopped on the beach. "Chairman, we'll be heading back first." Evita said goodbye to Sui and Steel before turning to head back to the magic airship. Akali looked at Sui and gave a soft snort before turning away. She waved her hand at Steel before turning to leave. Sui couldn't help laughing. This stingy fellow, it's already been an afternoon and she still hasn't calmed down? Steel said with a faint smile, "Of course, this is something that girls care about the most, so of course she wouldn't be happy if you say this. Not to mention that she cares about your evaluation the most, and you said that you didn't like it, so it would be strange if she was happy." Sui helplessly shook his head. "I can't go against my conscience, right? That means that you still like girls with big chests the most?" Sui's eyes fell onto Steel's chest and he raised a brow. "What do you think?" Steel revealed a smile. She suddenly came to Sui's ear and said in a soft voice, "Do you know why Evita wasn't willing to change into her swimsuit? Because she was shy? After all, a man like me is here." Steel shook her head. "No, I'm certain that she really wanted to change into her swimsuit and show off her figure in front of you, especially after what you said." Sui rubbed his nose. "What do you mean by this?" "It's just that," Steel said with a smile. "She wasn't willing to change into her swimsuit not because she was shy, but rather because she was afraid of hurting Akali. Because Evita is much more voluptuous than me." Sui looked at Steel's chest in surprise and swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty. Chapter 584. There was a fire-red magic sedan that was like a flame that came from the road. It didn't slow down at all after entering Sui's manor, only stopping when it was about to hit Sui who was waiting outside. When it stopped, the front of the car was almost touching Sui's calf. The door opened and Elder Lysania came out of the driver's seat. She nodded at Sui and revealed a satisfied look. Not bad." Chairman Su, your courage is considered quite good among humans, it's enough to match the girls of our elf race. Su Yi's face couldn't help twitching. The elves had always been known for their elegance in his mind. An elven beauty driving a magic sedan was already enough to make him feel a strong sense of disharmony, not to mention that this elven beauty was also racing. Although the elves had stronger physiques than humans and the Xinfei brand magic sedan was only 60 kilometers an hour, which wasn't considered fast for them, Su Yi couldn't connect the intense and passionate sport of racing with the elves no matter what. Not to mention that the elven beauty who was racing was a dignified elder of the elven tribe. Seeing Elder Lysania, who had a smile on her face and looked like a human girl, Su Yi thought of Great Magician Camilla's old face. Great Magician Camilla didn't just like racing cars. After coming to the Principality of Constantine, he actually liked surfing. At the same time, he liked driving the small magic speedboats on the sea. He even organized the new flyer guards to surf and race with the new sea guard. Compared to the young people of the new flyer, this old man who was over 60 years old had more exciting days. Could it be that at their level of strength, they pursue excitement more than normal people? Su Yi couldn't help thinking. After greeting Su Yi, Elder Lysania looked around but didn't see anyone else. She immediately frowned and softly snorted. Where are Aaliyah and the others? Why don't I see him beside you? Su Yi quickly explained, the new moon troupe is rehearsing a new opera today. They are very interested, so I asked Steele to take them to see it. I see. Elder Lysania nodded. That's not bad. If they learn how to sing and dance, will they be more popular with you? Su Yi smiled awkwardly. Well, no matter what, I think a girl who can sing and dance is more charming than an ordinary girl. That's good. However, Chairman Su, Aaliyah and the others have been with you for nearly 4 months. Have you not decided which one to choose? Elder Lysania asked again. Su Yi bitterly smiled. Your Excellency Elder, I've already told you many times that I will only have Steele as my wife and won't consider anyone else. I admit that Aaliyah and the others are very charming and are very attractive to me, but I won't accept them as my wives. Moreover, this isn't fair to them, is it? Aaliyah and the other 4 elven girls were selected by Elder Lysania from the Moon Shadow tribe. Their purpose was to fulfill the proposal that Elder Lysania and Elder Elucia had made to Su Yi. They hoped that Su Yi could marry the elven girls of their tribe and deepen their relationship. However, Su Yi was very disgusted by this kind of political marriage. Therefore, even though he was still in contact with Aaliyah and the other elven girls, he had never considered marrying them. I didn't say that I wanted them to become your wives. Elder Lysania slowly shook her head. Chairman Su, Elder Elugia and I have already made it very clear when we proposed this to you last time. We hope that the elves and humans can work together, allowing the elves and humans to work together better, and you are the best choice for this. You don't have to marry them as your wives. As long as you can marry them and give birth to half-elven descendants, that's enough. Su Yi frowned. Your Excellency Elder, this. Why does it sound like you're using me as a stud horse? If you want to understand it that way, that's fine. Elder Lysania calmly said. According to my observation of human society, you human men shouldn't refuse to mate with any beautiful female, right? And I know that you human men are very interested in us elven women. You are no exception. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been impulsive when facing me and Elucia last time, right? Recalling the last time when he was naked with Elder Elucia and Elder Lysania, Su Yi couldn't help but have some thoughts. His gaze towards Elder Lysania couldn't help but drop a little. The elves had always been sensitive, so Elder Lysania immediately noticed the change in Su Yi's expression. She shook her head. I am already over 500 years old this year, so according to what you humans say, I am already an old woman. Chairman Su, since you have the desire to mate with an old woman like me, then you must be interested in young girls like Aaliyah and the other elves. Sui awkwardly turned his face away. After calming himself down, he coughed and made an inviting gesture to Elder Lysania. Let's leave this topic for later. Let's go in and discuss business first. Elder Lysania frowned and looked at Sui. Seeing his firm expression, she didn't say anything else and walked in. Looking at Elder Lysania's back, Sui let out a sigh. Although they were both elven elders, Elder Lysania and Elder Elucia had very different personalities. In comparison, Elder Elucia was closer to the image of the elves in Suyi's mind. She was elegant, wise, and demure. Her every movement revealed a gentle and amiable aura. Elder Lysania, on the other hand, left a very different impression on humans. Her personality was very strong, and her actions were far more radical than Elder Elucia. After confirming the cooperation with New Flyer, the Moon Shadow Tribe, under her leadership, took greater strides than the Nightsong Tribe. Up until now, the Moon Shadow Tribe had already built 3 fertilizer processing plants, 2 rubber processing plants, and opened a garden crafting chamber of commerce. Using the unique ability of the elves to control plants, they specialized in designing and modifying gardens that were needed by humans. Although New Flyer had completely withdrawn from the Lampari Kingdom, because of the importance of fertilizer to agricultural production, the Lampari Kingdom didn't set fertilizer as part of magic machines. They didn't restrict the purchase of it within the kingdom. Because it was close to the autumn harvest, just last month alone, the Lampari Kingdom had ordered over 700,000 tons of fertilizer from the Moon Shadow Tribe's fertilizer processing plants, bringing a huge profit of over 1,000,000 gold coins to the Moon Shadow Tribe. Just this alone had already surpassed the annual profit of the Nightsong Tribe. But this was also because the scale of the Moon Shadow Tribe was several times larger than the Nightsong Tribe. In terms of profit per unit, the Nightsong Tribe's rubber processing plant and tire processing plant were actually higher. It was because of the large benefits of cooperating with the Frestek Chamber of Commerce, as well as the changes it brought to the tribe, that Elder Lysania and Elder Elucia approved of Sui and the Frestek Chamber of Commerce. They even seriously considered letting Sui marry an elf girl to deepen their relationship. Elder Elucia's approach could be considered gentle. She only hoped that Sui would seriously consider this matter and didn't urge him. Elder Lysania directly picked Aaliyah and 5 other beautiful elven girls from the tribe and stuffed them beside Sui for him to choose from. Although Sui repeatedly expressed that he didn't like this method, Elder Lysania simply didn't care about Sui's protest. And Sui couldn't really harden his heart and drive Aaliyah and the other elven girls back, so he just dragged it on. Of course, the Moon Shadow Tribe had obtained huge benefits, so Elder Lysania naturally wouldn't only consider deepening her relationship with Sui. This time, she came here to discuss with Sui how to deepen the cooperation between the Moon Shadow Tribe and New Flyer. After the two entered the room, Sui personally poured tea for Elder Lysania and asked, "Elder Lysania, since you have time to come here, does it mean that you plan to cooperate with us on the Strew Roads Roadbed Enhancement Project?" The so-called Strew Roads Roadbed Enhancement Project had to start with the Strew Road. This Strew Road was actually a road that connected the Principality of Constantine and the Kingdom of Ruhr. This road started from Suyi's private territory in the west and ended in the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Principality of Constantine's capital, Karaka City, in the east. The other parts of the road were easy to deal with, but the difficult part was the connection between the Principality of Constantine and the Kingdom of Ruhr. Because the Principality of Constantine was originally located in a large basin, the border between it and the Kingdom of Ruhr was actually a huge cliff that stretched for an extremely long distance with a drop of more than 50 meters. If they wanted to build a road from the Principality of Constantine to the Kingdom of Ruhr, they had to overcome this difficulty. When Sui proposed to the Kingdom of Ruhr to build such a road, the Kingdom of Ruhr felt that it was impossible to accomplish. Even the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, that had laid down over 20,000 kilometers of road, felt that this task was impossible. Because there was a drop of over 50 meters, it was impossible for any horse carriages or magic cars to fly up, so there was no meaning in laying down this road. But Sui had proposed a simple and crude method to solve this problem. Chapter 585. This method could be summed up in a single sentence. The cliff was too high. That was simple, he just needed to flatten it. A 50-meter high cliff, for most people in Signs, it was a natural moat that they couldn't jump over. So whether it was the Kingdom of Roer or the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, when they heard that Sui wanted to build a road from here to the Kingdom of Roer, they all thought that he was crazy. But for Sui, on Earth with its advanced technology, a 50-meter high cliff wasn't considered a problem that was hard to solve. On Earth, there were many ways to solve this problem, but with the current technology of Signs, Sui chose the simplest method, which was to flatten the cliff. Specifically speaking, it was to use large amounts of stone and earth to raise the Principality of Constantine, creating a road that connected to the Kingdom of Roer on the other side of the cliff. It was impossible to completely flatten it. What Sui wanted was to create a road that could be used to pave a road. Considering the height of the cliff and the slope of the road, according to his calculations, this road would be 5 kilometers long. With a road that was at least 50 meters wide, the amount of stone and earth needed would be an astronomical figure. If it was with the technology of the Signs continent before, whether it was digging or transporting stones, they could only rely on manpower. To complete this kind of large project, it would take at least over 10,000 workers, spending several years or even more than 10 years to complete it. This kind of work, other than the will of the country, there was no other possibility. But now with the help of the construction magic machines developed by New Flyer, this project was much simpler. After the careful calculations of the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, their final estimate was that as long as New Flyer could provide enough large and medium magic excavators and large magic cars, this large project wouldn't require more than 3,000 workers and it wouldn't take more than 2 years. If everything went smoothly, the entire Stru Highway would most likely be completed within 5 years. However, although the required manpower and project time had been greatly reduced, the investment would not be reduced by much. According to the estimation, the Stru Highway would definitely be the most expensive highway built by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. The total length of the road from Sui's private territory to the border between the two countries was more than 140 kilometers. The estimated investment was 300,000 gold coins. For the Kingdom of Roer, the total distance from the border to Karaka was about 560 kilometers, and the investment was estimated to be 1 million gold coins. These two sections of road were paved according to the standard of ordinary roads, and the estimated cost was also according to this standard. However, from filling in the roadbed to the top of the cliff and entering the Kingdom of Roer, the total length was only about 5 kilometers. It was estimated that the cost would exceed an astonishing 800,000 gold coins. In total, this Stru road was 700 kilometers long, and the total investment was more than 2 million gold coins. It might even reach 2,500,000 gold coins. Although the Kingdom of Roer would be responsible for the investment of the Kingdom of Roer, President Cruz still felt that the cost of this road was too high, and it was not worth it. In his opinion, instead of spending so much money to build this road, New Flyer might as well take a detour. At most, it would only take an extra day and a small amount of transportation. It was far more economical than building this road. However, Sui did not feel much about this price. On Earth, the cost of building a highway was tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of gold coins per kilometer. On average, the cost of building a highway here was less than 10,000 gold coins per kilometer, which was undoubtedly much cheaper. Although the artificial materials of Signs were extremely cheap, and the quality of the highway was far inferior to the highways on Earth, Su-yi still felt that this price was completely acceptable. The reason why he insisted on investing large amounts of money and overcoming these difficulties to build this road was actually because Su-yi didn't want to use the method that President Cruz mentioned. It was possible to take a detour to transport goods to the Kingdom of Ruhr, but if they wanted to take a detour, they had to pass through the Lampari Kingdom. First, not to mention that they had to pay a certain tariff when entering and leaving the Lampari Kingdom. If the Lampari Kingdom banned New Flyer's products from passing through, it would be too late for New Flyer to find a solution. In the end, the Frestek Chamber of Commerce was developing the large magic boats that could travel the deep seas and building the Stru Road. It was all to make it easier for the Frestek Chamber of Commerce to transport their goods to other places on the continent. Even if the Principality of Constantine had a pleasant climate and was very suitable for living, there weren't many disturbances, but the terrain here was a bit limited. If they didn't find a way to solve this problem ahead of time, New Flyer would only have a dead end. Of course, Elder Lysania didn't consider these problems. She came to meet Su-yi this time mainly because the Stru Road project would pass through the Moon Shadow Forest where the Moon Shadow tribe was. To fill in the ground and raise the road, it would greatly affect the terrain of the Moon Shadow Forest. So Su-yi had to obtain the support of the Moon Shadow tribe ahead of time. When Su-yi proposed this project to Elder Lysania and asked for a cooperation, Elder Lysania had agreed to it. When Elder Lysania came this time, she didn't reveal any strange expressions, so Su-yi naturally thought that she had decided to cooperate. As expected, after hearing Su-yi's question, Elder Lysania said with a nod, There's no problem in cooperating. After all, if we can connect to the Kingdom of Ruhr, it will also be good for our tribe. Su-yi smiled faintly and waited for her to continue. Elder Lysania paused for a moment before saying, But, Chairman Su, I have to make a few requests. Please speak. First, the construction of this road will cause a lot of damage to the Moon Shadow Forest, so it will have a certain impact on the lives of our tribe. Chairman Su, you should give our tribe some compensation. Su-yi couldn't help but smile. Who said that the elves were so proud that they disdained to haggle over every ounce like humans? Elder Lysania was bargaining with him right now. That's only natural. Only I wonder how many gold coins Elder Lysania thinks we should give in order to satisfy you? Su-yi asked with a smile. No, pure gold coins don't have much meaning to us, and we don't lack them right now. Elder Lysania shook her head. Then what kind of compensation do you need? Su-yi was slightly surprised. We need some practical help. For example, because there isn't enough water in the Moon Shadow Forest, it is very difficult for our tribe to use water. Chairman Su, I heard from Alucia that your first contact with the Nightsong tribe was to help them solve their water problem. Then can you also help our tribe solve this problem? Su-yi pondered for a moment before nodding. Although we can only know the answer after a field trip, it shouldn't be a problem. For example, with the siege machines that our Chamber of Commerce has developed, we can extract a large amount of underground water for your tribe to use. I can even build a comprehensive automatic water supply system for your tribe, ensuring that your tribe members can use clean water without leaving their homes. Really? Elder Lysania was pleasantly surprised. There is actually such a convenient system? That's great. Chairman Su, I will order such a system from you right now. I can also pay for it separately. Seeing the excitement in Elder Lysania's voice, Su-yi was a bit puzzled. Was every elf tribe facing a water source problem? Whether it was the Nightsong tribe or the Moon Shadow tribe, the first problem they wanted him to solve was actually this problem. As for this comprehensive automatic water supply system, Su-yi had already begun to implement it on a small scale on his territory. For example, there was a magic water pump under his manor, which was currently pumping underground water into a newly built water tower. Then it flowed through the water tower into various pipes, supplying all the rooms that needed it. This automatic water supply system had been developed for less than 2 months and was still in the experimental stage. After it was confirmed to be feasible, it would be spread across the entire territory. Su Yi's goal was that in the first half of next year, every family in the territory would be able to use clean running water. Other than the water problem? Do you have any other requests? Other than the water problem, there isn't anything else that is important. Elder Lysania gave a few more requests with a smile. As expected, they weren't anything important. She just hoped that new flyer could make things more convenient for the Moon Shadow tribe. For example, Elder Lysania hoped that new flyer could develop a new type of fertilizer machine for the Moon Shadow tribe's fertilizer factory, which would increase the efficiency and output of the factory. Or for example, the Moon Shadow tribe hoped that outside the Moon Shadow forest, they could build a small elven town like a human town. They hoped that Su Yi could negotiate with Duke Stantine and Lord Wine, obtaining their approval. Or for example, Elder Lysania hoped that new flyer could build a special magic sedan for her. After hearing Elder Lysania's requests, the way Su Yi looked at her had greatly changed. Compared to normal elves, this Elder Lysania was more like a smart human merchant. She definitely wouldn't give up her benefits because of the pride of the elves. When he worked with the Moon Shadow tribe before, Su Yi didn't have a deep understanding of this, but this time he had a deep understanding of it. Because Su Yi had satisfied all of her requests, Elder Lysania was very satisfied. After finalizing these compensations, she nodded with a smile. Very good, Chairman Su really is the best friend of us elves. As a noble elf, I must give you a sufficient response to your generosity. Chairman Su, actually I can give you a new plan for raising the roadbed that can save you at least 500,000 gold coins and a large amount of time. Are you interested in this? Su Yi was stunned. It can't be, right? What plan could save them 500,000 gold coins at once? And it could save them a large amount of time? This was simply a fantasy. But thinking of how mysterious the elves were, Su Yi's expression became serious. He sat up and looked at Elder Lysania. I'd like to hear the details. Chapter 586. Seeing Elder Lysania drive the fire-red magic sedan away like a ball of fire, disappearing over the horizon, Su Yi couldn't help shaking his head with a smile. The discussion with Elder Lysania gave him the feeling that it was no different from a discussion with a human merchant. It was not as relaxed and pleasant as when he talked with Elder Elugia. On the contrary, he felt a little nervous, which forced him to concentrate and deal with it well. However, he was more comfortable with such a method. After all, he had more dealings with human merchants. Moreover, if both sides put their benefits out in the open, it was much simpler to cooperate with each other. It was fine as long as they took what they needed. Although Elder Lysania gave quite a few requests, it wasn't that hard for the new flyer. But the solution she gave in the end made Su Yi feel that it was strange. This solution was even simpler than the one Su Yi proposed to the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. Su Yi's proposal was to raise the roadbed and lay a road on top of it. This was already exaggerated enough, but Elder Lysania's proposal was even more exaggerated, because she wanted to use plants to replace the roadbed. Su Yi naturally had large doubts about this because plants were always very weak in his mind. How could they replace the roadbed and bear such a large amount of weight? Not to mention that the highest point of the roadbed was 50 meters above the ground. What kind of plants could grow to such an exaggerated height? However, Elder Lysania assured him that the elves had a way to solve this problem. This was because when the elves first informed this continent, the largest city of the elves, Moonlight City, Darnassus, was built on a huge world tree. The world tree could withstand a weight that was many times greater than ordinary roads. Although the world tree no longer existed due to the decline of the elves still had many ways to grow special plants. With the characteristics of these plants, they could completely replace the roadbed. Sui was very doubtful about this. To him, not mentioning anything else, just the instability of the plants was enough to deny the possibility of using them as a replacement for the roadbed. Even if this special road was built, if the plants that supported it withered or changed, it would destroy the entire road. Because of the strictness of a mechanical engineer, Sui didn't agree to this plan. Elder Lysania didn't insist on Sui agreeing, rather she had Sui think about it before leaving. If it was the legendary life goddess, perhaps I would believe that there really was such an exaggerated road. Sui gave a shrug. He looked away from the magic sedan in the distance and turned around, but he was surprised. When did you come? Seveni revealed a faint smile. I've been here for a while, but I saw that you were discussing things with Elder Lysania, so I didn't disturb you. Seeing Seveni's face that had clearly become thinner, Sui gave a sigh in his heart. After Seveni brought her private guards here, she settled down in a corner of the private territory that Sui had arranged for her. She rarely went out, only occasionally coming to chat with Sui and Steele. The rest of the time, she would stay at home reading and painting, becoming an otaku girl. This didn't match the warm and sunny image that Seveni left people before, but whether it was Sui or Steele patiently persuading her, they couldn't change her actions at all. According to what Steele said, she could clearly feel a dead heart from Seveni. Sui didn't understand what happened to her that made her suddenly become like this, so he couldn't think of a way to comfort her. He could only watch as Seveni became thinner with each passing day, as her face went from healthy red to pale white with each passing day. In order to find out the truth, Sui had some of his connections in the Lampari kingdom investigate, but he couldn't find anything. But from the news that Viscount Leslie gave him, he learned that King Eric didn't have any attitude towards Seveni leaving the Lampari kingdom with her private guards. The kingdom didn't say anything about this matter, like Her Highness Seveni didn't belong to the Lampari kingdom. This matter was naturally strange, but since Seveni didn't say anything, Sui couldn't obtain the truth. Sui thought about it and found that he couldn't directly ask Seveni about this matter. He could only pretend to ask with a casual smile, "Did you come looking for me for something?" Seveni shook her head. "It's nothing, I just felt a bit bored staying in the room, so I wanted to come out for a walk." You should come out more," Sui immediately said. "If you always stay at home, you'll become an otaku girl." Seveni looked at Sui in surprise. "What does an otaku girl mean?" Sui laughed. "It's a girl who stays at home and isn't willing to go out, that's an otaku girl." Seveni couldn't help smiling. It doesn't sound like a good word, but it's quite interesting. Seeing Seveni finally reveal a happy smile, Sui let out a sigh of relief. He looked at the sea in the distance and pointed at the back of the manor. "Since you're here, why don't we sit down and talk?" Seveni didn't reject and followed Sui to the back of the house. They came to a platform on the cliff that Sui had set aside when he built the manor. This platform was floating above the cliff and there was the sea below. Looking forward from the platform, one could see the endless sea. It was currently afternoon, and the sun was already close to the sea level. The sunlight shone all the way, reflecting a large amount of brilliant white light on the surface of the sea. It was as if the entire surface of the sea was covered with bright white fish scales, looking extremely magnificent and gorgeous. Sui sat down in his special chair and leaned back, letting out a long sigh of relief. Seeing Sui's appearance, Seveni couldn't help revealing a smile. She learned from Sui and sat down in another chair. She looked at the sea in the distance and nodded. Looking at the sea from here, it is indeed very comfortable. Sui, I never thought that you were someone who knew how to enjoy life. Sui laughed, of course. I'm this tired normally. If I don't learn how to enjoy life and treat myself better, wouldn't that be a loss? Turning to look at Seveni, Sui continued, Seveni, staying at home all day isn't a good thing. You should learn from me and do something. No matter what, let your body and mind be tired, that way you won't have to think about all those random things. When you're tired, you can rest like now and you'll find that you'll feel much better. 70 was silent for a bit before slowly saying, Are you worried about me? Sue was surprised. He never thought that 70 would ask this directly. Looking at the calm expression on 70's face, Sue gave a serious nod. Yes, I'm indeed worried about you. I don't know what happened to you that made you become like this. As a friend, I'm very worried about your current state. I like the 70 who was always sunny, always optimistic, and always had a warm smile, not the current lifeless 70 who doesn't have any vitality at all. 70's lips curled into a bitter smile as she shook her head. Not only you, I don't like this either. But I can't think of a way to solve this problem, so I can only choose to run away. But if I kept running away, it would only make me sink into deeper pain. I really don't know what to do. Seeing the dazed look on 70's face, Sue felt pain in his heart. 70's personality was very strong, and this matter could make a strong person like her become this helpless. It could be imagined how serious this matter was. But this was what Sue found the strangest. For this honorable royal highness of the Lampuri kingdom, what kind of thing could make her feel this much pain and helplessness? If it was because she wanted the throne and found that she couldn't become the king, that could be understood. But Sue knew that 70 wasn't this kind of person. If she really wanted the throne, when Lampuri 13th passed away, she would have had a large chance of gathering the nobles who supported her to fight for the throne with Eric, as well as having a large chance of winning in the end. However, she was willing to endure the wrath of the nobles and give up the throne to Eric. This was enough to prove that she wasn't greedy for the throne. Since it was like this, why was she in this much pain? 70, do you believe me? Sue thought about it before asking 70 this with a serious look. 70 turned and saw Sue's sincere expression. She suddenly took a deep breath and turned back. Is there anyone else here? Sue was surprised before his heart filled with joy. 70 was clearly planning on opening her heart and revealing the secret in her heart to him. He turned around the room behind him, and after confirming that there was no one else here, he sat back down and nodded to 70. No problem. All right then. 70 closed her eyes and was silent for a while before she made her decision. She opened her eyes and took another deep breath. Her expression became very calm as she said to Sue with a serious look, Sue, perhaps you are my only friend. I can't tell anyone else about this matter, but keeping it in my heart has made me unable to take the pain, so I want to tell you to relieve this pain. Can you understand me? Of course. Sue gave a strong nod. Hearing a friend talk about their pain is the responsibility of a friend. But what I'm about to say, it won't be good for you if you know about it. Do you still want to hear it? 70 asked. Sue laughed. Your Highness, aren't you looking down on people too much? You still have the same problem. Once you're not satisfied with me, you call me that. 70 revealed a faint smile before falling into deep thought. Her expression kept changing before finally calming down and looking at Sue again. All right, Sue, I'll ask you a question, please seriously answer me. Sue slowly nodded. Please ask. Sue, if your big brother killed your father, what would you do? Sue was stunned before his expression changed. Chapter 587. The two looked at each other in silence for a bit before Sue gave a dry swallow and hesitantly asked, Could it be His Majesty Lampuri 13th, he? No need to guess, yes. 70 gave a slight nod. Even if he had guessed it, hearing 70 admit it now, Sue was so shocked that he was speechless for a while. Seeing the bitter look on 70's face, he finally understood why 70 suddenly became like this, why she was so lonely and helpless. Based on this, 70 was already very strong. because if it was anyone else who encountered this, they would have already collapsed. When did you find out? Sui thought about it before asking. I haven't known for long. Seveni gave a soft sigh. But even if I already knew, what could I have done? Sui was speechless. After a while, Sui tentatively asked, You never thought of taking revenge for Lampuri 13th? Of course I thought about it, Seveni replied with a bitter smile. But Eric is the Lampuri Kingdom's king now, and if I wanted to take revenge for Royal Father, it would cause internal strife in the kingdom. Royal Father cherishes this kingdom the most and I understand him. He definitely doesn't want me to cause chaos in the kingdom to take revenge for him. Sui, what do you think I should choose? Sui was still speechless. Even if Seveni came from a normal family, it would be very hard for her to make a choice in this matter. Not to mention that she came from the royal family, each action could affect the entire Lampari kingdom. This choice was even harder for Seveni. Sui thought about it and finally gave a bitter laugh. Seveni, I finally understand why you suddenly have this kind of mentality of running away. When encountering this matter, if it was me, I would also run away. Seveni turned to look in the direction of the Lampari kingdom and said with a sigh, If Eric could lead the Lampari kingdom on the right path and make the kingdom stronger, I wouldn't be unwilling to run away at all. But with the current Lampari kingdom. Seeing Seveni tightly knit her brows, Sui gave a bitter laugh in his heart. Seveni chose to give the throne to Eric and now she chose to run away in this situation, going against her conscience to not take revenge for the Lampari kingdom's 13th. It was just for the stability and prosperity of the Lampari kingdom. But Seveni never would have thought that in just a year of Eric's reign, the Lampuri kingdom's internal situation would be this bad, and there would even be rebellions. Was there a trace of regret in Seveni's heart right now? Of course, Sui wouldn't ask this question. Thinking about it, Sui comforted her, You don't need to worry too much. Although the kingdom is a bit, it's not a bit. According to the information from various sources, King Eric is already trying to break away from Duke Stag's influence and is using his authority as a king. Moreover, it can be seen that he is wholeheartedly thinking of the Lampari kingdom. Look, he has even released some restrictions on our new flyer, allowing our new flyer's products to freely pass through the Lampari kingdom. I think, as long as he keeps going, the Lampari kingdom will definitely become stronger. Seveni was silent for a bit before slowly nodding. I hope it's like this. If he can lead the kingdom to become stronger, although I will never forgive him, I will still be happy for the kingdom. Although Sui didn't support Seveni's idea, he could understand it. Being born in the royal family meant having to shoulder the responsibility of the kingdom, so there were many choices that were different from normal people. In terms of personal feelings, it was impossible for Seveni to forgive Eric, but considering the benefits of the Lampari kingdom, she could only take a step back. Seveni turned to look at the sea in the distance, and after being in a daze for a while, she suddenly asked, Sui, you say, on the other side of the sea, is there really a continent? Perhaps. Sui replied with a faint smile. Logically speaking, this world shouldn't only have our sign's continent. When our company develops the magic boats, I will organize a fleet to explore the unknown continents of this world. Seveni, are you interested in coming? Seveni finally revealed a sparkle in her eyes as she said with a nod, I'm very interested. I don't have anything to miss about signs. Exploring a new continent, perhaps it's the most suitable thing for me. Sui gave a sigh in his heart, but he still had a faint smile on his face as he said, Although exploring a new continent is exciting, it definitely isn't as fun as you think. So you have to prepare yourself ahead of time. Isn't there still several years before your fleet is established? With this much time, it's enough for me to prepare myself. Seveni revealed a smile before turning to look in the direction of the Lampari kingdom. This is also good. I'll use these few years to see if Eric is competent enough as a king. What if he isn't competent? Sui didn't ask this question. Seveni looked in the direction of the Lampari kingdom for a while before closing her eyes and taking a few deep breaths. When she opened her eyes again, her expression was calm again. Sui, thank you for listening to me. I've suppressed this matter in my heart for several months, and if I couldn't find someone to talk to, I would have gone crazy. Now that I've talked to you, I feel much better. Sui revealed a faint smile. No need to be polite, we are friends, this is what I should do. But, Seveni, you're telling me such an important secret, aren't you afraid that I'll tell others? I believe you, you won't. Seveni shook her head with a faint smile. Seveni shook her head with a smile, not to mention that even if you say it, no one will believe you, right? Sui thought about it before giving a self-deprecating laugh. Indeed, he was only the chairman of a company and the new flyer had been chased out of the Lampari kingdom, so he naturally didn't have any right to speak in the Lampari kingdom. And even if he did, for such an important matter, how could anyone believe his side of the story? Of course, Sui couldn't reveal this matter. This was the most important secret that Seveni had shared with him. Seveni didn't choose anyone else and chose to tell him this important secret, which was enough to prove Seveni's trust in him. The two looked at each other in silence for a bit before Seveni stood up with a smile. All right, I've finally told you this secret that I've been struggling with for several months. I feel much better now. Sui, according to your plan, I might stay here to disturb you for 3 to 5 years. You won't be tired of it, right? Sui stood up with a laugh and spread his arms to welcome her. I welcome you to stay here. You can stay here for as long as you want, you can even stay here for your entire life. Seveni's face suddenly turned red and she looked at Sui. You really want me to stay here for my entire life? Dang. Sui had only said one word when he saw Seveni's strange expression and understood. His words were a little too flirtatious. Sui awkwardly rubbed his nose. After thinking about it, he said with a serious look, Seveni, you should know that I've never treated you as your highness, but rather as a friend. Since we are friends, helping you is something I should do, so you don't need to worry at all. Just treat this territory as your home. Home? Seveni had a bitter look on her face. Ever since my father died, my home has disappeared. Sui sighed in his heart before saying with a faint smile, then treat this place as your new home. Is that so? Seveni looked at Sui with a ghost of a smile before waving her hand at Sui. All right, let's end it here today. Sui, I've already told you the biggest secret in my heart. Perhaps I'll keep telling you my little secrets in the future, so you have to be prepared. Seeing the expression on Seveni's face, Sui couldn't help smiling. Being able to joke with him meant that Seveni had finally walked out of the knot in her heart. Although she might never be able to solve this knot in her heart, with her strength, he believed that as time passed, she would walk out of it bit by bit. Sui spread his hands. You're welcome at any time. Seveni waved her hand at Sui with a smile before turning to leave. Sui thought about it and didn't keep her. Seveni had come to tell him her thoughts today, so she must have mustered up her courage. She looked very calm on the surface, but her heart must be filled with waves. At this time, it was better to let her go back alone to calm down. Sui watched Seveni leave. When he was about to pass by the back room, he suddenly heard a commotion in the front yard of the manor, like several people had charged in. Hearing the frightened voice of Liz in the front yard, Sui knit his brows and walked to the front yard with the surprised Seveni. Before they reached the gate, a figure charged in from outside. The two of them looked over and were surprised to find that it was Seveni's cavalry commander, Murloc. Seeing Murloc's anxious and panicked expression, the two of them were even more surprised. What had happened that made him have this kind of reaction? Murloc saw Seveni and charged over. Without waiting for the two of them to ask, he said while panting, Your Highness. His Majesty, he. passed away. 70 and Su-yi were stunned. Chapter 588. What do you think Her Highness will do when she goes back this time? Watching 70's guards leave Su-yi's territory, quickly heading in the direction of the Lampari Kingdom, Steele couldn't help asking Su-yi beside her. How would I know? Su-yi shook his head with a bitter smile. But if nothing unexpected happens, the Lampari Kingdom will fall into the chaos that 70 is most worried about. Moreover, this time, she can't escape even if she wants to. A week ago, the news of King Eric's sudden death shocked everyone. King Eric was only 33 this year. He was in his prime. How could he suddenly die? Moreover, according to the news released by the Lampari Kingdom, his death was because he was working too hard and he died from exhaustion. This cause of death was just too unbelievable. Although King Eric had gradually taken control of the country and worked hard every day, his body had always been good. If he died from exhaustion because of this, that would be too unbelievable. The day after receiving this news, 70 headed back to the Lampari Kingdom. Even if Eric had killed Lampuri 13th and 70 didn't have any affection for him, he was still 70's big brother in the end, and he was the Lampari Kingdom's king. Now that he had suddenly died, 70 naturally had to go back to attend his funeral. The more important thing was that 70 was very doubtful about Eric's death. Lampuri 13th had already died an abnormal death, so it wasn't surprising that Eric had died an abnormal death. This could be seen from the 5,000 sets of military magic machines that 70 had ordered from Su-yi for her guards before she left. It was clear that 70 was prepared for the worst this time. It was different from when she faced Eric. She had to consider the stability of the Lampari Kingdom before, so she could only choose to escape. But now that Eric had suddenly died, she had no reason to escape and could only face it head-on. Thinking of the serious and determined look on 70's face before she left, Su-yi gave a sigh in his heart. The Lampari Kingdom really was filled with disasters. When Lampuri 13th was on the throne, he greatly supported the new flyer. The entire Lampari Kingdom was filled with prosperity and quickly developed. But Lampuri 13th had died and the new flyer had been forced out of the Lampari Kingdom, causing the situation of the kingdom to suddenly change. Eric, who had taken the throne, had finally put down the prejudice in his heart and began to open his arms to new flyer. Su-yi saw the dawn of new flyer entering the mature market of the Lampari Kingdom, but he never thought that Eric would suddenly die's death's death. The day after the news of Eric's death came, there was the news of Eric's eldest son, Prince William, inheriting the throne. At the same time, there was the news of Duke Stagg becoming the regent. Prince William was only 5 years old this year, so of course he couldn't handle the country's matters. So it was clear that the power of the Lampari Kingdom fell into Duke Stagg's hands. 70 didn't have any objections to Prince William inheriting the throne, but she couldn't accept the Lampari Kingdom falling into Duke Stagg's hands. Lampuri 13th had died. Although Eric was the mastermind, according to the information she had, Duke Stagg was the biggest accomplice and he had personally carried out the plan. 70 could tolerate Eric for the benefit of the Lampari Kingdom, but she definitely couldn't tolerate Duke Stagg, who had killed her father controlling the Lampari Kingdom. Before 70 left, she must have made her decision. Su-yi could predict that when 70 returned to the Lampari Kingdom this time, there would be a giant storm in the Lampari Kingdom. If nothing unexpected happened, the entire Lampari Kingdom would fall into great turmoil and might even fall into civil strife. Su-yi didn't care about what the Lampari Kingdom would become, but he cared about 70 very much. 70 clearly had enough awareness in her heart and had already made her decision. But the situation she was about to face was very dangerous. Because she gave up on fighting for the throne with Eric and added in the fact that she didn't want to affect Eric's rule, 70's foundation in the Lampari Kingdom wasn't as stable as before. On the contrary, The Stag family was the most powerful family in the Lampari kingdom other than the royal family. Adding in the fact that Duke Stag had taken control of the Lampari kingdom in the past year, the Stag family's strength had naturally increased. When Seveni returned to the Lampari kingdom this time, if nothing unexpected happened, she would definitely clash with the Stag family and the conservative nobles that the Stag family represented. Those conservative nobles already had vested interests in the Lampari kingdom, so they wouldn't give up on the benefits in their hands. If Seveni wanted to take back control of the Lampari kingdom from them, it could be imagined how hard it would be. With the new Flyers' current strength, it was impossible for them to directly participate in the internal struggles of the Lampari kingdom, but Sui still did his best to help Seveni. For the 5,000 private guards that Seveni brought, Sui gave them a set of military magic machines. At the same time, he gave them 100 magic bazookas, 10 medium-sized magic trebuchets, 20 magic armored vehicles, and even 100 magic communicators that were still in the experimental stage. This kind of equipment was enough to greatly increase the battle strength of Seveni's private guards. Moreover, Seveni's private guards hadn't been idle in the past few months. During these months, they often practiced with the new Flyers guards, so they already had enough experience on how to use these military magic machines. This was enough to ensure that they could display the might of these military magic machines in battle, so naturally their battle strength wasn't normal. But Sui could only help Seveni this much. He couldn't help her anymore. This was because the situation in the Principality of Constantine wasn't calm. After defeating Francount and taking over Francount's territory, Lord Wine's strength had greatly increased. The number of soldiers under him had increased from less than 10,000 to over 20,000. After defeating Francount, Lord Wine ceded some territory to Sui as compensation. He ordered large amounts of military magic machines from New Flyer and continued attacking the lords on the border with him. Now that Lord Wine had a large army and large amounts of military magic machines, as well as the large amount of battle experience he had from fighting Count Fran, his army's battle strength far surpassed the other lords of the Principality of Constantine. Once a battle began, they were invincible. Faced with Lord Wine's strength, the other lords of the Principality of Constantine were naturally terrified. Everyone was clear that the main reason why Lord Wine could be this strong was because he had purchased enough military magic machines from New Flyer. So during this time, almost every lord of the Principality of Constantine had ordered military magic machines from New Flyer. These lords were the same as Lord Wine, they couldn't take out enough gold coins to pay for it. These lords wanted to learn from Lord Wine and use their territory as compensation, but they were all rejected by Sui. These lords' territories didn't have borders with Sui's territory, so even if he obtained a part of their territory, Sui didn't have the ability to send people to manage it. Instead of taking this unreliable territory from them, it was better to obtain some more practical benefit. Sui's goal was to obtain more practical resources. Although the lords of the Principality of Constantine were very poor, with some not even being able to take out 10,000 gold coins, the Principality of Constantine under their feet was rich in resources. Even if it was a small lord, they would have 1 or 2 mines and various other resources under their name. According to the contracts they signed with New Flyer, during these months, large amounts of resources had been transported from the Principality of Constantine to Sui's territory, entering the various factories of New Flyer. A part of these resources were turned into military magic machines, which were sold to the lord. The other part was turned into civilian magic machines produced by New Flyer. Other than the part that was sold in the Lampari Kingdom, the rest was sent to the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Mirando Duchy. During this time, New Flyer could be considered to have earned quite a bit. Because these lords were in urgent need of New Flyer's military magic machines. Although New Flyer didn't raise the price of the military magic machines, the prices of the resources they sent were kept very low by New Flyer. In the end, New Flyer could earn large amounts of profit just by selling military magic machines to the Lord. Not to mention the fact that they could use these resources to make other magic machines and sell them. These civilian magic machines didn't have any material costs, and New Flyer only needed to pay labor costs, so the profits could be imagined. According to last month's financial report, New Flyer had earned a net profit of 3 million gold coins in just a month. Before this, New Flyer had been forced out of the Lampari Kingdom market, so their monthly net profit of close to 1 million gold coins had dropped to a mere 300,000 to 400,000 gold coins. This sudden increase of 10 times, it was no wonder Sue-yi was filled with emotions. Making money from war really was the fastest way to accumulate capital. Chapter 589. The first snow fell, and in just a single morning, all of Seoul City had been dyed white. Count Samo looked at the snow falling outside the window with a serious expression. Her Highness Seveni had already been back in the Lampari Kingdom for a month. In the beginning, everything had been normal. After Her Highness Seveni returned to Anvilmar City, she calmly attended King Eric's funeral, but she didn't reveal anything from beginning to end. According to everyone's expectations, since Her Highness Seveni had given up the chance to fight for the throne with King Eric, she should support King Eric's son, His Highness Prince William, to take the throne. But Her Highness Seveni unexpectedly didn't reveal this meaning and even vaguely questioned this. Count Samo was vigilant at that time. This time, perhaps Her Highness Seveni would make a choice that would surprise everyone. As expected, half a month later, after Her Highness Seveni attended King Eric's funeral and led her guards back to her territory, she suddenly announced that King Eric didn't die a normal death, but rather someone had poisoned him. This news shocked the entire Lampari Kingdom. When Her Highness Seveni announced this news, she directly pointed the spear at Duke Stag. Her Highness Seveni announced that she had enough evidence to prove that Duke Stag had ordered someone to poison King Eric. With Her Highness Seveni's identity as the first successor to the Lampari Kingdom's throne, she announced that Duke Stag had poisoned the king, committing the most treacherous crime of treason. At this time, the Lampari Kingdom was filled with excitement. The Stag family had controlled everything in the Lampari Kingdom in the past 2 years, and Duke Stag had a lot of power. Now that Her Highness Seveni was accusing him like this, it was clear that she couldn't coexist with the Stag family. Duke Stag's response to Her Highness Seveni's accusation was to firmly deny it. He said that Her Highness Seveni had clearly seen King Eric's sudden death and wanted to take the throne, so she made this accusation. She wanted to deny His Highness Prince William's right to the throne and take the throne herself. This rebuttal received the support of many people in the Lampari Kingdom because Her Highness Seveni had chosen such a good time that people couldn't help doubting it. For a while, the Lampari Kingdom side that supported Her Highness Seveni and Duke Stag were at odds with each other, causing the kingdom to fall into chaos. However, for Count Samo, this battle of words had no meaning. He was very clear that what would decide the final result would be the strength of both sides. Count Samo was most loyal to the Lampari Kingdom. According to his original intentions, it was best for the Lampari Kingdom to always be stable and peaceful. So when Her Highness Seveni gave up on taking the throne with Eric, although he was a bit disappointed, he also felt gratified. However, now that Her Highness Seveni had suddenly announced this shocking news and acted like she wanted to take the throne, the Lampari Kingdom was in the most dangerous situation. However, Count Samo couldn't blame Seveni because according to the information he received from a secret channel, King Eric's sudden death was very suspicious. Although it wasn't strange for Eric to appoint Prince William to take the throne, it was very strange for Duke Stag to be the regent. Not only Count Samo, Many nobles in the kingdom knew that even if King Eric relied on Duke Stag in the beginning and even listened to him, starting in the first half of this year, there were many differences between King Eric and Duke Stag. It could even be said that they completely went against each other, going against Duke Stag's suggestions in many ways. In this situation, how could he appoint Duke Stag as the regent and lead the kingdom? No matter how he analyzed it, Count Samo agreed with Her Highness Seveni's accusation. That's right, it must be that Duke Stag saw that King Eric wanted to break free from his control, so he poisoned King Eric. Then he supported a 5-year-old child like Prince William to take the throne, planning to truly control the Lampari kingdom. Count Samo suddenly had a trace of regret in his heart. If he could have worked with the nobles who supported Her Highness Seveni and pressured Her Highness Seveni, even forcing her to fight for the throne with His Highness Eric, Her Highness Seveni would have taken the throne and the Lampari kingdom wouldn't have become like this. Moreover, if Her Highness Seveni took the throne, she would have supported the new flyer, so how could she force the new flyer out of the Lampari kingdom? In the end, the Lampari kingdom's flourishing magic machine industry was ruined by those fellows led by the Stag family, not improving at all. In the current Lampari kingdom, only Soul City still had a part of the new flyer's industry. This was something that Count Samo had kept with his strong attitude. Although Duke Stag had questioned this many times and tried to steal these industries, Count Samo had forcefully rebuffed him. In this, the one who had played a decisive role was the kingdom's third army that Lampuri XIII had sent to Soul City before his death, who had to be commanded by Count Samo. Lord City Lord, Princess Caroline is here. The City Lord Manor's official came in to report. Count Samo turned around and gave a slight nod. Let her in. After a short moment, Princess Caroline, who was dressed in a pure white fur coat and looked like a white flower that bloomed in winter, walked in with light steps. City Lord Samo, it's been half a month since we last met. How have you been recently? Princess Caroline said with a faint smile. Count Samo shook his head. As you can see, it hasn't been good. Princess Caroline was a bit surprised by Count Samo's reply. After being surprised, she looked over Count Samo before smiling. She looked out the window and said, "It's already snowing, you don't need to worry about the Sack Kingdom invading during this time. Snowing can't stop anything." Count Samo shook his head. "If there's a need, our Soul City's city guards and the kingdom's third army have the ability to launch a surprise attack in the snow. But I'm not worried about this. Even if the Sack Kingdom wants to invade, they won't choose this time." "Yes, they will definitely choose when your Lampuri kingdom is at its weakest." Princess Caroline gave a slight nod. Princess Caroline nodded. "If nothing unexpected happens, next year will be a very good time." Count Samo gave a bitter laugh. "If your highness can see this, there's no reason for the Sack Kingdom to not understand. Yes, our Lampari kingdom is already in a very dangerous situation. If we aren't careful, this kingdom that has been passed down for several hundred years will be destroyed." Princess Caroline slowly shook her head. "No, Sir Count Samo, I don't think so." Count Samo looked at Princess Caroline in surprise. "Sir Count Samo, if I may be direct, you should be worried about the fate of the Lampari kingdom because you're worried that the kingdom will fall into a civil war and the Sack Kingdom will take advantage of this, right?" Count Samo slightly knit his brows before nodding. "Then Sir Count Samo, have you ever thought that if the civil war doesn't last long and Her Highness Seveni stabilizes the situation of the kingdom, would the Sack Kingdom still dare invade?" Count Samo was surprised. "How is that possible? Your Highness, you don't understand the situation of our kingdom. Her Highness' prospects aren't good." "Is that so?" Princess Caroline's smile was like a flower. "Sir Count Samo, I think that you've forgotten a very important factor. Her Highness Seveni has a very important supporter, that is something that no one can compare to." "Which supporter is that important?" Count Samo shook his head with a frown. That is impossible. No, of course it is possible. Because this supporter is Sue and his new flyer. Princess Caroline said with a faint smile. Count Samo's brows knit even more. After thinking about it, he shook his head again. You think too highly of the new flyer. Although I admit that the new flyer will provide strong help to Her Highness, it isn't enough to affect the situation of the kingdom. That isn't certain. Princess Caroline looked at Count Samo. After thinking about it, she chose to give up on this topic. She came to Seoul City this time mainly to discuss the matter of cooperation with Count Samo. The new flyer's industries in Seoul City, other than being supplied to Seoul City and the surrounding cities of the Lampari Kingdom, large amounts of them were also sent to the Drake Duchy. In the Drake Duchy, the household magic machines of the new flyer were very popular. Moreover, through the Drake Duchy, the new flyer's products were also sold to the two neighboring duchies, so they were very popular in those two duchies. Princess Caroline came here this time mainly to discuss with Count Samo about moving some of the new flyer's workers from Seoul City to the Drake Duchy, creating a new production base in the Drake Duchy. Sir Count Samo, just like you're worried, the Lampari Kingdom will definitely fall into internal strife. During this internal strife, these workers that are important to Seoul City and even the Lampari Kingdom must be preserved. Do you agree with my point of view? I agree with this very much. But sending them to your Drake Duchy isn't the only choice. I can choose other ways to send them out of the Lampari Kingdom or even back to the new flyer. Sue handed their safety to me back then. I can't break my promise to Sue. Count Samo said with a serious look. But doing this won't make the new flyer support Her Highness 70, right? Princess Caroline said with a smile. Count Samo was a bit surprised before his eyes lit up. Your Highness, you mean? Princess Caroline revealed a faint smile before reaching her hand out to Count Samo. Sir Count Samo, I represent the Drake Duchy to propose a cooperation agreement to you. If you're willing to help our Drake Duchy build a new magic machine industrial base in our duchy, our Drake Duchy will cooperate with you as much as possible and give Her Highness 70 the greatest support. Count Samo looked at Princess Caroline in a daze. New flyers magic machines, it had this much of an attraction to the Drake Duchy? It could even make them abandon their neutral attitude and support a certain side. But this wasn't all. Princess Caroline continued, if you agree to transfer a part of the military magic machine technology to our duchy will fully cooperate with Her Highness 70. In the future conflict between the Sak Kingdom and the Lampari Kingdom, we will stand on the side of the Lampari Kingdom. How about it? Sir Count Samo, are you moved by this proposal? Count Samo saw Princess Caroline's smile that was as beautiful as a flower and his heart skipped a beat. Chapter 590. Su Yi's eyes moved away from the fragrant letter in his hand and fell onto the face of the envoy. Please tell Her Highness for me that it is impossible to transfer the military magic machine technology, at least it's impossible right now. The envoy revealed a very disappointed look. That really is a pity. Chairman Su, the Duke, and Her Highness have promised that as long as the new flyer is willing to transfer the military magic machine technology to our Drake Duchy will follow Chairman Su's wishes and give Her Highness 70 the greatest support. Moreover, our Drake Duchy will open the market to your new flyer and work hard to help your new flyer sell their products to other countries. With such generous conditions, why doesn't Chairman Su agree to this just to exchange for some technology? The time isn't right yet. Su Yi shook his head. But Your Highness doesn't need to be too disappointed. Although we can't transfer the military magic machine technology to the Drake Duchy right now, I can agree to Your Highness' suggestion. We can transfer some of the new flyer's technology to the Drake Duchy and build a military magic machine factory in the Drake Duchy. The envoy's eyes lit up. Really? That's right. Su-yi nodded. Other than the military magic machine factory, our company will also build a series of other magic machine factories in the Drake Duchy, creating a complete production base in the Drake Duchy. Of course, this requires the agreement of your country. No problem. No problem. The emissary nodded. The envoy nodded. The Duke and Her Highness will definitely agree to Chairman Su's suggestion. That's good. Su-yi revealed a faint smile. After sending off the envoy from the Drake Duchy, Kennard, who had been listening the entire time, said to Su-yi with knitted brows, "Sir Chairman, we don't have a way to affect the Drake Duchy right now. If we really build factories in the Drake Duchy, if the Drake Duchy wants to steal the technology, we won't be able to do anything at all. If they lack foresight, then let them do as they please," Su-yi said with a smile. "Using some technology that is about to be eliminated to see if a partner is worth paying attention to, I feel that it's quite worth it." Kennard couldn't help rolling his eyes. The technology that was about to be eliminated, that Su-yi mentioned, was like a treasure in the eyes of countless people. There were many people who wanted to obtain it even if they had to bleed. For example, the Sak Kingdom that had been eyeing the Lampari Kingdom, or the Kingdom of Ruhr that was cooperating with the New Flyer, or the large and small lords of the Principality of Constantine. Right, speaking of the military magic machine technology, Lord Wine has been making similar requests to us during this time. Sir Chairman, how are you prepared to reply to him? Kennard asked. Su-yi's lips curled slightly as he revealed a taunting smile. Does he really think that if I give him the technology, he can really make a qualified military magic machine factory? Kennard immediately shook his head. I don't think so. In addition to technology, Lord Wine didn't have an equally important industrial system, technical personnel, or even skilled workers. Even if he has the technology, he can't even make the simplest magic repeating crossbow. After pausing, Kennard asked, "This means that you're planning on transferring the technology to Lord Wine?" "No. We have to treat our partners equally. Since we're not planning on transferring the technology to the Drake Duchy, naturally we can't transfer it to Lord Wine." Su-yi shook his head. "Just tell Lord Wine that his territory shares a border with ours, so it's very convenient for him to buy from our company. We can promise him that we'll give him priority." Kennard knit his brows. "Sir Chairman, you just said that we have to treat our partners equally, but now you're saying that we have to give priority to Lord Wine. This isn't good. Not to mention the other partners, even in the Principality of Constantine, you've always given priority to Count Anklo's side." Su-yi looked at him and wanted to laugh. "I say, Kennard, you came from the Emma family, worked for the Walmart Chamber of Commerce for quite a while, and now you've worked for our New Flyer for quite a while. Could it be that you can't even give a bit of secret preferential treatment?" Kennard could only roll his eyes again. When he heard how righteous Su-yi was, like he wanted to treat everyone equally, he followed this train of thought, but he never thought that Su-yi would suddenly change his style. "All right, Sir Chairman, I understand what to do," Kennard helplessly said. "But Sir Chairman, I need to remind you that with our company's current production, if we give priority to Count Anklo and Lord Wine, as well as Her Highness Seveni's request, there won't be much left. We won't be able to satisfy the needs of the other lords and the Kingdom of Ruhr, so I'm afraid they will be dissatisfied." "Dissatisfied?" Su-yi gave a cold snort. "If they're dissatisfied, then they can be dissatisfied. If they have the skills, then don't buy it." Kennard laughed heartily. He thought to himself, don't be fooled by Sir President's gentle appearance normally. Once he became unreasonable, he was more domineering than anyone else. But although Su-yi's words were overbearing, the problem of New Flyer not having enough production capacity existed and couldn't be avoided. This problem had existed since New Flyer was established, and Su-yi had always been thinking of a way to solve it. But it wasn't easy to create a magic machine industry from nothing. Whether it was developing technology, perfecting the system, or even training the most basic workers, it all required a large amount of time and investment. Although under Su Yi's care, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had already established a basic magic machine industry that could be considered complete, whether it was the researchers or the normal workers, they were far from being able to satisfy their needs. Not to mention that because of New Flyer's strong promotion, the people of the surrounding countries were quickly increasing their demand for magic machines. The production capacity of Xinfei's merchants was becoming slower and slower. This problem was already very serious when it came to household magic machines, so it was even more of a headache when it came to military magic machines. After the two discussed this problem for a bit, Kennard thought about it before suggesting, "Sir Chairman, how about we recruit some people from the Lampari Kingdom? That might not be realistic." Su Yi knit his brows. Kennard knit his brows. The Lampari Kingdom is already on guard against us, so we can't advertise in the kingdom. Moreover, there aren't that many people in the kingdom who are willing to leave their homes to work for our company. Things are different now. Kennard shook his head. The situation in the kingdom is this tense. Duke Stagg doesn't have the time or energy to care about us at all. The citizens of the kingdom have been worried about the situation in the kingdom for a long time, so if they leave the Lampuri Kingdom and come to our company to find a comfortable and good job, it would be very attractive to most people. This is also reasonable. Su Yi thought about it before saying with a nod, "Since it's like this, we can consider recruiting some workers from the Lampari Kingdom. The most ideal situation is to steal all the technical staff from those 10 companies." Kennard revealed a faint smile. "Sir Chairman, in this aspect, our Emma family can also help." Su Yi looked at Kennard in surprise. Although Kennard came from the Emma family, after working with him for so long, he rarely mentioned the Emma family in front of him. Now that he suddenly mentioned it, it must have been the Emma family who took the initiative to reveal this to Kennard. Other than the Emma family wanting to deepen their relationship with the new flyer, there was another important reason, which was that the Emma family was also a supporter of Seveni. Now that the situation in the Lampari Kingdom was on the verge of exploding, the large and small nobles and even the merchants had already expressed their stance. The Emma family had supported Her Highness Seveni before, but because Seveni gave up on the throne, they didn't do anything. Now that Seveni had publicly condemned Duke Stagg and questioned Prince William's right to the throne, revealing that she wanted to fight for the throne, there were many people who supported Seveni in the Lampari Kingdom who came out to support her. Thinking of this, Su Yi gave a nod to Kennard. "All right, I'll leave this matter to you." Kennard smiled and wanted to say something, but there was a rush of footsteps that came from outside the door. The two turned in surprise and there was a rush of knocking on the door. "Come in." The door was pushed open and the new flyer's human guard Captain Hart came in. After giving a bow to Su Yi and Kennard, Hart said in a deep voice, "Sir Chairman, we caught a group of fellows who secretly came from Lord Wine's territory. How should we deal with them?" Su Yi and Kennard were surprised. Secretly came from Lord Wine's territory? The two territories are so close, isn't it normal for them to take a stroll? What do you mean by secretly coming? What did you catch them for? Just let them go back. Kennard couldn't help asking this. It's different. Hart shook his head. These fellows didn't just come for a stroll, they are planning on settling in our territory. Settling? Su Yi and Kennard looked at each other, seeing the pleasant surprise in each other's eyes. Chapter 591. When Lord Wine transferred the 240,000 hectares of land to Su Yi, becoming Su Yi's private territory, he only transferred the land and didn't transfer the people of the territory. As a result, after Su Yi obtained the territory, there were only about 17,000 New Flyer employees who moved in with New Flyer. Although compared to the average population density of the Signs continent, This land that was less than 15 square kilometers had over 17,000 people, which was already considered not bad. But because most of the factories in New Flyer belonged to the intensive industry, a factory that occupied less than 1,000 square meters could accommodate hundreds of workers. Adding all the factories and living areas together, the total area didn't exceed 50,000 hectares. This made the rest of Su Yi's territory seem extremely empty and lacking in population. The more important problem was that because of the lack of a large population, it was extremely difficult for New Flyer to expand production and increase production capacity. Although there were people from the Lampari Kingdom coming to join New Flyer, in the past year, there were less than 2,000 people who came here. For New Flyer's large manpower needs, it was simply a drop in the bucket. The production capacity problem that Su Yi had been having headaches about was mainly the problem of population. Without sufficient manpower, even if New Flyer had abundant funds, it couldn't quickly increase production capacity. The reason why New Flyer cooperated with the Kingdom of Ruhr and invested in the Mirando Duchy was to establish more production bases and increase overall production capacity. But the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Mirando Duchy weren't under the control of New Flyer. Although the relationship between New Flyer and them was extremely close, no one could guarantee that there wouldn't be any changes in the future. In order to solve the manpower problem, Su Yi recruited a large number of Principality of Constantine's civilians through Lord Wine to enter New Flyer to assist in production. But according to the traditional rules of signs, since these civilians were the people of Lord Wine's territory, then they belonged to Lord Wine. New Flyer not only had to pay Lord Wine a large amount to hire these people, but they also didn't have the right to manage them. This led to Su Yi not being willing to train these people. He only let them do the simplest work and didn't let them get involved in technical work. But this way, hiring these workers would provide less help to New Flyer. Su Yi had suggested to Lord Wine that he would move a group of citizens from his territory to join his territory, but Lord Wine had rejected him. The population of Signs was very tight and for all the lords, people were the most important resource in their territory. Naturally, Lord Wine wouldn't agree to Su Yi's request. But according to the customs of Signs, if the people of a lord's territory wanted to move, they just needed to pay a certain price to leave the lord's territory. Sir Chairman, are you really planning on paying for them to move? Seabass looked at the people around the New Flyer's newest magic air conditioner and knit his brows. Of course. Su Yi nodded. It was different from the look of disdain Seabass had when looking at these people. Su Yi had an interested look. It was like these ragged people who looked no different from beggars had some kind of treasure on them. Sir Chairman, the Principality of Constantine is much stricter than our Lampari Kingdom in this regard. Moreover, Duke Stantine has made it clear that if we really want to do this, it will cost at least 100 gold coins per person. Moreover, they came from Lord Wine's territory, so Lord Wine will definitely have a higher request. Seabass added. So what if he wants 200 gold coins? Su Yi turned to Seabass and said with a serious look, if Lord Wine is willing to give me all the people in his territory, I'm willing to spend money to buy them all. The problem is that Lord Wine definitely won't do it, so we should buy as many as we can. Seabass revealed a bitter smile. But Sir Chairman, our company's funds add up to less than 2 million gold coins. How can we buy so many people? That's why we should buy as many as we can. Su Yi revealed a faint smile. Not to mention that at this time, even if we give Lord Wine real gold coins, he might not want them. Sir Chairman is right. Kennard, who had finished talking with those people, came over and took over from Su Yi. Compared to gold coins, Lord Wine might need the various military magic machines provided by our company the most. I think that when Sir Chairman negotiates with him, he will raise this request. Seabass furrowed his brows even more. Although he was the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's financial manager and was mainly in charge of finances, He didn't care about production at all. But he still had a good understanding of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's current production situation, so he was very clear on what kind of situation the Frestec Chamber of Commerce was facing. But if we agree to Lord Wine's conditions, won't we have a problem with other supplies? That's why, in order to completely solve this situation of robbing Peter to pay Paul, we have to find a way to solve the company's production bottleneck. And to solve this problem, human resources are the most important factor. This is a good opportunity, we can't miss it. Sui said with a serious expression. In terms of finance, Seabass, you have to do the specific statistics and relevant preparations. If Lord Wine really needs gold coins, you have to be able to meet his needs. As for the specific production arrangements, Kennard, I'll leave it to you. Understood. Kennard nodded. If it really doesn't work, we can actually coordinate with the companies on the Black Rice Wasteland and ask them to help process some parts. After saying that, Kennard looked at Sui with an inquiring gaze. When the Frestec Chamber of Commerce made the various military magic machines, from the research to the components, the assembly, and so on, it was all done by the Frestec Chamber of Commerce alone. They never let any other companies or unrelated people interfere. Now that Kennard brought up this idea, it was to suggest to Sui that other companies should also be included in the military production of New Flyer. Sui pondered for a bit before nodding, all right. But you have to carefully choose and give priority to the small companies that have long-term cooperation with our company. I'll seriously consider it, Kennard said with a serious expression. All right, let's do that. Sui turned to look at Seabass. Seabass thought for a bit before nodding. All right, Sir Chairman, I'll prepare enough liquid funds for this. But Sir Chairman, the second phase of the Strew Road project is about to start. We have to prepare at least 500,000 gold coins for the early stage investment. If we include this, then our company won't have much liquid funds left. If there is any demand, there will be problems, and we might not even have enough to pay the wages of the workers. You don't need to worry about this. Sui waved his hand. I've already contacted Newman, and the Kingdom of Ruhr will be ordering large amounts of household magic machines from us in the next 3 months. We can earn enough profit from this to guarantee the company's liquid funds. But this is still a bit dangerous, Seabass muttered before shaking his head. As the financial manager of New Flyer, Seabass had always felt very relaxed. Because New Flyer's product sales had always been high and their profit margins were high, their financial situation had always been good and there had never been any problems. But in the past year, New Flyer's financial situation had become a bit tense. This didn't mean that New Flyer was in a crisis because other than when New Flyer left the Lampari Kingdom, their product sales had decreased and their profits had decreased. But the rest of the time, their sales had been high and their profits had been high. But in just a year, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had spent too much money. Especially after obtaining this territory from Lord Wine. Because Sui finally obtained a piece of land that he could control, he began investing in this land. Now in this territory that was less than 25 square kilometers, there were 13 intersecting roads that connected almost every part of the territory. After obtaining this territory, Sui had also reconstructed the workers' living quarters of New Flyer. Now that they were walking in the living quarters, they could see the beautiful houses that looked very magnificent. At the same time, Sui had bought a large amount of daily necessities from the other companies, making it very convenient and comfortable to live here. Moreover, Sui had invited the elves of the Nightsong tribe and the Moon Shadow tribe to make the territory green again, making it full of life and beautiful. Almost every person who came to this territory would be shocked by the living environment here that was completely different from other places. Even Her Highness Seveni and her private guards were very satisfied with this place after living here for 4 months, even forgetting to go back. But to create this kind of living environment it cost a lot of money. Since Sui obtained this territory, up to now, the Frestek Chamber of Commerce had invested a total of 4,680,000 gold coins in this territory. It could be said that most of the Frestek Chamber of Commerce's profits were invested in the transformation of this territory. And this wasn't all. According to Su Yi's plan, there were many places that needed to be improved on this territory. For example, Su Yi's newest plan was to install a complete water supply system for the entire territory. To complete this system, not only did it require at least 300 new magic water pumps from New Flyer, it also required a large amount of water supply pipe. Even if the most important water purification device was the green plant filter provided by the Nightsong tribe, which was very cheap, the cost of this water supply system was still shocking. According to Seabass estimates, to build this water supply system according to Su Yi's idea, it would cost at least 800,000 gold coins. It was because they needed to spend a lot of money that Seabass was against Su Yi buying people from Lord Wine. Relax. Su Yi understood Seabass' worries, but as the chairman, he had more things to consider than Seabass. This is also for the company to earn more profits in the future, so you as the financial manager will have more confidence in the future. As long as you persist, there will be light soon. Moreover, I'm doing all these things, in the end it's to make other people's lives better, right? Sir Chairman is right. Kennard also said with a smile, Seabass, do you know what those people said when I asked them why they wanted to move to our territory? Seabass and Su Yi looked at Kennard with interested looks. They told me that the reason they wanted to move here was because life would be more comfortable on our territory. But what I found a bit funny was that what they cared about the most was the water supply system that you were worried about. They said that to be able to drink clean and sweet water without leaving the house, even gods wouldn't be able to live a good life. Su Yi broke out in laughter when he heard this, but Seabass didn't say anything. He turned to look at them for a while before giving a slight nod. Chapter 592. Actually, if Lord Wine was willing, even if the people of his territory wanted to leave, he had 100 ways to stop them. He could even forcefully stop them from leaving his territory. Because the lords of this world had absolute power in their territories, unless the citizens ran far away, they wouldn't dare go against them. There was no need to mention running to Su Yi's territory that was next to theirs. But when Su Yi proposed this to Lord Wine's attitude was different from last time. He told Su Yi that since the people of his territory were willing to leave, as long as they paid him a satisfactory compensation, he wouldn't stop them at all. This was naturally a disguised agreement. So after some bargaining, Su Yi finally reached an agreement with Lord Wine on behalf of the New Flyer. According to the agreement, 5,000 people of Lord Wine's territory would, willingly, move to Su Yi's territory. According to the rules of the signs and the rules of the Principality of Constantine, Su Yi as the new lord had to pay Lord Wine a corresponding fee of 150 gold coins for each person. Other than that, in order to compensate Lord Wine for losing his people, Su Yi had to pay 700,000 gold coins for Lord Wine. The agreement was a total of 2,200,000 gold coins. New Flyer proposed using other items as compensation, which Lord Wine agreed to. In the end, it was decided that New Flyer would pay 500,000 gold coins to Lord Wine. The remaining 1,880,000 gold coins would be replaced with household magic machines and military magic machines that were divided into 4 batches. Other than this, Lord Wine had 3 chances to ask New Flyer to help him in battle. This final request reflected the current situation in the Principality of Constantine. After defeating Francount, Lord Wine hadn't even digested all the resources in Francount's territory before fighting 3 lords and winning all of them. In just a month's time, he had completely defeated 2 of the overlords. The remaining overlord was also retreating in defeat, unable to resist at all. He believed that it wouldn't take long for the remaining lord to be completely defeated. This situation attracted the attention of everyone in the Principality of Constantine. If Lord Wine defeated these three lords and swallowed their territories, Lord Wine's territory would be over 10,000 square kilometers. He would become the lord with the largest territory in the north of the Principality of Constantine. Even in the Principality of Constantine, he was one of the strongest lords other than Duke Stantine. Moreover, because the population density in the north of the Principality of Constantine was higher than in the south, once Lord Wine of these three territories, his territory would surpass 500,000 people. In the Principality of Constantine, he would be second only to Duke Stantine's territory. Adding in his military strength, Lord Wine's overall strength could even be compared to Duke Stantine. This naturally attracted the vigilance of the other lords in the Principality of Constantine. Lord Wine's strength had suddenly increased, and he had defeated 4 lords including Count Fran, who was on par with him. Then he wouldn't stop and would definitely target the other lords in the duchy. Even, he might challenge Duke Stantine. The power division in the Principality of Constantine was based on strength. If Lord Wine could defeat Duke Stantine, then Lord Wine would most likely become the next Duke Stantine and control the greatest power in the Principality of Constantine. For a while, the situation in the north of the Principality of Constantine became very tense. Correspondingly, all kinds of military magic machine orders were sent to the new flyer like snowflakes. Perhaps there were a few lords who had doubts about the new flyer before, but after seeing the might of the military magic machines Lord Wine provided by the new flyer, as well as using actual battle examples to prove this point, the lords in the Principality of Constantine no longer dared to have any doubts. Because the new flyer's production wasn't enough, they couldn't satisfy all these orders at the same time. As a result, many lords in the Principality of Constantine kept raising the price. These lords naturally didn't have enough gold coins to pay. Before this, most of the lords used resources to exchange with the new flyer, but now all the lords used this method. A carriage of normal quality iron ore could be exchanged for 10 magic repeating crossbows or a magic bazooka, but now it required 3 carriages of high quality iron ore to exchange. If one looked down at the Principality of Constantine from the sky, they would find a strange phenomenon. From all over the Principality of Constantine, there were horse carriages that were like ants, carrying various ores to the northwest of the duchy, finally gathering at Su Yi's private territory. After delivering the ores, these horse carriages would bring the military magic machines, exchanged from the new flyer back to where they came from. If one paid attention for a bit longer, they would find that on the way back there would be various hijackings. The new flyer only took care of the transactions in their territory, they also weren't responsible for transporting the goods. Want to buy something? That's fine, do it yourself. Want to bring the things back? That's fine, do it yourself too. If there was a company on Earth that dared to do something this irresponsible, they would be cursed to death by all the consumers. But in this place, everyone felt that this was natural and no one dared to object. Su Yi saw the caravans that worked hard to transport large amounts of ores to his territory, only to exchange for a few military magic machines, and he couldn't help feeling a bit guilty. Dear, we don't include shipping. However, when the caravans sent by the lords exchanged for the military magic machines from the new flyer, they were all very happy and didn't complain at all. As for the new flyer including shipping, they didn't even think about it. Different from how he treated the lords of the Principality of Constantine, Su Yi's attitude towards Seveni was the complete opposite. When providing military magic machines to Seveni, not only did the new flyer take care of transporting the military magic machines into the Lampari Kingdom, they even allowed Seveni to owe them. It could be said that in the 5 years since the new flyer was established, Seveni was the first customer that the new flyer allowed to owe them money and give them priority in paying for their products. It had to be known that no matter what product the new flyer made, they were all very popular and the supply never met the demand. Before this, other people would pay new flyer in advance and pray that the new flyer would provide the goods as soon as possible. How could there be people who owed new flyer? But no one in the new flyer objected to Su Yi's decision. Everyone knew that this was Su Yi's investment in Seveni, it was his big gamble. If Seveni could control the Lampari kingdom, the new flyer would definitely receive a return that was much greater than their current investment in the Lampari kingdom. The only question was, Her Highness Seveni. Could she succeed? In the autumn and winter of year 3784, in just a short 3 months, Seveni used facts to prove Su Yi's accurate judgment to everyone, as well as the power of the new flyer's support. In the beginning of October, Her Highness Seveni gave a speech on her territory. She once again confirmed Duke Stag's conviction, calling him a traitor. She also said that she would punish him as the previous king's little sister and the princess. 3 days later, Duke Stantine released a statement saying that Her Highness Seveni was slandering him. Her idea was to deny Prince William's right to the throne and try to take the throne herself. She would announce the king's decree in Prince William's place, confirming that Her Highness Seveni had betrayed him. A week later, both sides formed their armies and the Lampari kingdom's civil war officially began. In the beginning, everyone thought that Her Highness Seveni was hitting a rock with an egg. This was because in the year that King Eric had taken the throne, the entire Lampari kingdom was under Duke Stag's control. During this time, Duke Stag had used various methods to suppress most of the voices that opposed him, and his family's strength had greatly increased. As for Her Highness Seveni, she had completely disappeared in this year. Not only were the nobles that supported her forced to change sides, she even took the initiative to disperse some of her personal guards. The difference in strength between the two sides was naturally like heaven and earth. However, when the Lampari kingdom's civil war officially began, the facts exceeded everyone's expectations. First, after Her Highness Seveni made the announcement, close to half of the cities in the Lampari kingdom expressed their support for Her Highness Seveni. Compared to half of the cities that supported King William and Duke Stag, and most of the cities that didn't express their stance and remained neutral, Her Highness Seveni's momentum was much bigger. When Seveni's personal guards clashed with the kingdom's second army that Duke Stag sent out, the results shocked everyone. The 2nd Regiment of the Lampuri Kingdom's army, that was only second to the 1st Regiment of the kingdom's garrison army, couldn't fight back at all. The kingdom's 2nd Army had 15,000 people, and Seveni's private guards only had 3,000 people. This shocking result made everyone feel that it was unbelievable. Why did Seveni's personal guards have such shocking battle strength? Was it just because they were equipped with the military magic machines from New Flyer? Chapter 593. The Lampari Kingdom's civil war was something that everyone couldn't understand. According to the estimates of most people, once the Lampari Kingdom's civil war broke out, it would be a stalemate that would take a long time. Moreover, most people thought that Duke Stag's side had more power than Her Highness Seveni's side, so if they fought, it was clear that Duke Stag's side would have the advantage. But the actual result was that since the Lampari Kingdom's civil war broke out in October, in less than 2 months, Her Highness Seveni's private guards had attacked Anvilmar City. Although Duke Stag had reacted quickly and left Anvilmar City ahead of time with His Highness William, returning to the Stag family's territory, saying that he would fight Her Highness Seveni to the end, everyone could see that Duke Stag didn't have any chance of fighting back. Because as Her Highness Seveni's fierce attacks pushed forward step by step, there were more and more cities in the Lampuri Kingdom that supported Her Highness Seveni. When Her Highness Seveni attacked Anvilmar City, and with Count Samo as the representative, she controlled Anvilmar City with the support of the Lampari Kingdom's royal family. Over 3/4 of the Lampari Kingdom's cities supported Her Highness Seveni. In just 2 months, the situation in the Lampari kingdom had reversed. If it wasn't for the fact that it was winter and it wasn't convenient to send troops, everyone believed that Her Highness Seveni would have chased them down and attacked the Stag family's territory, taking care of all the opposing forces in the kingdom. Although I expected this result, I never expected this process. Leslie gave a bitter laugh and shook his head. Leslie shook his head with a bitter smile. I never thought that after Her Highness Seveni received the support of your company, her battle strength would become this strong. I've personally witnessed a battle between the two sides and that scene. It couldn't be considered a battle at all, rather it was a one-sided slaughter. So? Sue-yi looked at Leslie with a bit of amusement. You saw that the situation was bad, so you ran to my place ahead of time? I have to remind you, as a direct relative of the Stag family, you are a convicted traitor. If you stay here, it'll be considered as me harboring a traitor. Che, are you scared? Leslie rolled her eyes at Sue-yi. You are now Her Highness' greatest servant. Even if you harbor 1 or 2 traitors, I believe Her Highness won't really do anything to you. Then again, I've already been driven out of the family by my Lord Father, so I'm no longer related to the Stag family. If I really want to catch you, do you really think you can get away with it? Sue-yi waved his hand. All right, let's stop joking. Are you planning to go out to sea this time? But our magic boats are still far from being finished. I'm afraid we can't satisfy your request. No, I'm planning to buy some military magic machines from you this time, Leslie said. Sue-yi knit his brows and after thinking for a bit, he said in a deep voice, Leslie, although we are friends, if you want me to support Duke Stag, I can only say sorry. You're mistaken. Leslie slowly shook his head and said with a sigh, Lord Father's fate has already been decided, I can't change it and I'm not interested in changing it. Since he had chosen this path, he should be the one to bear the consequences. Right now I just want to keep his life. Sue-yi was stunned. This might not be possible, right? In this situation, could it be that you're still hoping that the Lord Duke can keep his life after being defeated? I'm not certain, but as his son, I can only do my best to give it a try. Leslie gave a sigh. After hesitating a bit, he looked at Sue-yi with a pleading look as he sincerely said, Sue-yi, you have a good relationship with Her Highness Seveni, and your new flyer was the most important factor in her winning the Civil War. If you speak up, I think she will at least give you some face. Sue-yi couldn't help giving a bitter laugh in his heart. If it was anything else, he was 90% certain that as long as he spoke up, Seveni would agree. But Duke Stag's crime was treason and he had participated in the poisoning of Lampuri XIII, as well as killing King Eric himself. This kind of treason that couldn't be forgiven, even if Seveni was benevolent, it was impossible for her to forgive him. However, this was Leslie's first time lowering himself in front of him after knowing him for so long. Although Sue-yi thought it was impossible, he still nodded to show that he would do his best. Actually, I also know that I'm just hoping. But this is something I should do, and as for the result, I can only let it be. Leslie gave a sigh and closed his eyes to think for a bit before saying goodbye to Sue-yi. After sending Leslie off, Sue-yi came to another room and saw the messenger Seveni had sent who had been waiting for him. Chairman Sue, if I'm not wrong, the person who just left was Viscount Leslie, right? The messenger looked at the manor's gate with a frown before asking Sue-yi. He is Duke Stag's son. Why didn't you immediately send him to Her Highness? This is a great merit. Sue-yi's face turned cold. He has already cut ties with the Stag family. Other than that, he is my friend. The messenger wanted to say something else, but seeing Sue-yi's expression, he gave 2 dry laughs and didn't dare mention this topic. If it was said that everyone thought that Sue-yi and Her Highness Seveni were close because Her Highness Seveni cared about the new magic machine industry represented by the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce, then after the Lampari Kingdom's civil war broke out, Everyone found that the reason why New Flyer and Sue received Her Highness Seveny's attention was because they had this kind of strength and were worthy of this attention. The reason why Her Highness Seveny's army could have such terrifying battle strength in the Civil War was mainly because of the support of New Flyer. So as Her Highness Seveny led her army forward, Sue and the New Flyer's prestige in the Lampari Kingdom quickly increased. It was different from before, when everyone's impression of the Frestek Chamber of Commerce was that they could produce all kinds of household magic machines. This time, everyone's impression of the Frestek Chamber of Commerce was more focused on the military magic machines that had endless might on the battlefield. Because of this impression, Sue as the chairman of New Flyer gradually became more dignified in everyone's hearts, even becoming a bit terrifying. This messenger was sent by Seveny to keep in contact with Sue, so naturally he knew how important New Flyer was to Her Highness Seveny. He also knew that Her Highness Seveny treated Sue differently from others, so of course he didn't dare act arrogant in front of Sue. So he could only watch as Leslie walked to the side of a magic sedan. He watched as this piece of fat meat entered the magic sedan and drove off, not daring to make a single sound. Seeing Leslie's magic sedan disappear into the distance, Sue turned to look at the messenger. Her Highness sent you here because there's a change in the next step of the plan? The messenger quickly nodded, yes. Her Highness wanted to discuss this with you personally, but there are many important matters in the kingdom to take care of right now and she can't leave, so she sent me to give you a general idea. She definitely can't leave now. Sue nodded. Sue nodded. If my guesses aren't wrong, Her Highness should be planning on having our New Flyer move back to the Lampari Kingdom, right? The messenger looked at Sue in surprise before loudly praising. Chairman Sue, you really are wise. That's right, this is Her Highness meaning. Her Highness said that she hopes that New Flyer can develop in the kingdom like before, working hard for the prosperity of the Lampari Kingdom. Her Highness also said that she will fully support your New Flyer's plans in the kingdom. She definitely won't let you and New Flyer be hindered in any way. Is that so? Sue revealed a smile as he looked in the direction of the Lampari Kingdom. Of course he believed in Seveny's sincerity, and believed that Seveny would fully support New Flyer's development in the Lampari Kingdom. Sue didn't have any objections to this, but there was a difference. This difference was that when New Flyer was still in the Lampari Kingdom, they treated the Lampari Kingdom as their foundation. All their development plans were based on making the Lampari Kingdom stronger and more prosperous. But now that they had left the Lampari Kingdom and established themselves in the Principality of Constantine, Sue's plans had undergone a large change. Although he would follow Seveny's wishes to have New Flyer invest in the Lampari Kingdom and develop the magic machine industry in the Lampari Kingdom, he wouldn't treat the Lampari Kingdom as their foundation. Because right now, New Flyer's foundation could only be on Sue's private territory. In Sue's mind, he would treat the Lampari Kingdom as a market no different from the Kingdom of Ruhr, the Mirando Duchy, the Drake Duchy, and the other countries on the continent. At most because of his relationship with Seveny, he would pay more attention to the Lampari Kingdom, but it was impossible for him to fully consider the development of the Lampari Kingdom like before. The Lampari Kingdom had already lost the chance for him to fully work for it. Did Seveny know about this? Chapter 594. In the final month of year 3874 of the continent, the situation in the Lampuri Kingdom had taken a shocking change. December 3rd, Duke Stagg suddenly made a public announcement to submit to Her Highness Seveny. He acknowledged Her Highness Seveny's right to the throne and supported her as the next queen of the Lampari Kingdom. December 8th, Her Highness Seveny led her private guards into the Stagg family's territory and accepted Duke Stagg's surrender. December 9th, Duke Stagg was found to have committed suicide by taking poison in his bedroom. On the 10th of December, Her Highness Seveny announced that Duke Stagg's crimes couldn't be forgiven. The The Stag family had participated in the rebellion and had also committed a large crime, but because of the contributions the Stag family had made to the Lampuri kingdom, she decided to forgive some of the Stag family's crimes. After half a month of trial, the Kingdom Parliament decided that 11 leaders of the Stag family, including Duke Stag, and some of the nobles who participated in the rebellion were guilty of treason and were sentenced to death. The Kingdom Parliament also confiscated most of the territories of the nobles who participated in the rebellion led by the Stag family, but to everyone's surprise, they didn't put these families to death. Rather, they left some of their bloodlines, allowing them to maintain the bloodlines of their families. The Kingdom Parliament even left some territories and industries for these families, guaranteeing that even if they couldn't live like before, they wouldn't have to worry about food and clothing, and their living conditions would far surpass that of normal citizens. This kind of ending was already very good for these families who participated in the rebellion. So in the Lampari kingdom, many people praised Her Highness Seveni's benevolence. There were even newspapers that declared Her Highness Seveni to be the most benevolent queen in the history of the Lampari kingdom. Her Highness Seveni would definitely lead the Lampari kingdom to quickly become stronger. Of course, there were some people who disapproved of Seveni's benevolence towards the rebels. Su-yi was one of them. Although preserving the bloodlines of the nobles is a benevolent method, isn't this giving them the chance to take revenge in the future? Su-yi looked at the red invitation in his hand and knit his brows as he spoke to the messenger sent by Seveni. "Does your Highness not understand this?" The emissary smiled and replied, "Of course your Highness understands this, but your Highness is only accepting this condition in consideration of the stability of the kingdom." "I knew it was this reason." Su-yi gave a shrug, showing that he understood. Actually, it wasn't that Su-yi couldn't understand Seveni's actions. If Seveni was given enough time and conditions, Su-yi believed that no matter how kind and benevolent she was, she definitely wouldn't show mercy to the nobles who rebelled. This was not a personal grudge, but a matter that concerned the survival of the entire Lampari kingdom. There was no room for mercy. Seveni did this without a doubt to pacify the Lampari kingdom's internal strife as soon as possible, letting the Lampari kingdom suffer the smallest losses. This would prevent them from being injured and allowing others to take advantage of the situation. According to the reports, the Sak kingdom had been strengthening their army on the northern border, clearly eyeing the Lampari kingdom like a tiger watching its prey. If the Lampari kingdom's internal strife lasted for too long, causing the kingdom to fall into chaos and their national strength to fall, the Sak kingdom would definitely choose to invade without any hesitation. If this really happened, the Lampari kingdom would be in danger. It was because of this that Seveni chose to negotiate with Duke Stag's side when she had the absolute advantage, finally accepting the surrender with some generous conditions. Although this would leave some hidden dangers in the Lampari kingdom, compared to the current crisis the kingdom was facing, it wasn't worth mentioning. Seeing that Su-yi seemed to have come back from his thoughts, the emissary quickly pointed at the beautiful invitation in Su-yi's hand and carefully said, "Chairman Su, since you've already seen this invitation, then please come to Anvilmar City. Her Highness will definitely be happy to see you." Su-yi lowered his head to look at the invitation in his hand. This invitation invited Su-yi to come to the Lampari kingdom's capital, Anvilmar City, on the 25th of December, the day of the birth of a god. He would participate in Her Highness Seveni's coronation and personally witness Her Highness Seveni becoming the new queen of the Lampari kingdom. Whether it was because of the relationship between Seveni and Su-yi or because of the new flyer's support for Seveni, it was natural for Seveni to invite Su-yi. Moreover, New Flyer had contributed greatly to Seveni calming the kingdom's internal strife, so Su-yi could even be considered one of the final guests at the coronation. However, after Su-yi thought about it, he shook his head. "No, this is Her Majesty's coronation. A normal merchant like me isn't qualified to participate." The messenger was surprised before quickly waving his hand. No, 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 Chairman Su, you are an honored guest personally invited by Her Highness. How could you not be qualified? Look, the signature on the invitation card was personally written by His Highness. Other than you, there are less than 10 other invitations that have Her Highness' signature, so it can be seen how important you are in Her Highness' heart. If you aren't qualified to participate, there are many people who aren't qualified to participate. Su-yi revealed a smile before shaking his head. Please tell Her Highness for me that although I really want to personally see her ascend the throne, I really can't find the time that day. Please tell her that I'm sorry for me. The messenger knit his brows. Chairman Su, what matter do you have that is more important than attending Her Majesty's coronation? Su-yi looked at him and calmly said, This isn't related to you. The messenger was stunned and his heart was filled with anger, but thinking of Her Highness Seveni's orders, he could only endure it and keep persuading Su-yi. However, Su-yi seemed to have made up his mind. No matter what he said, he wouldn't agree. Seeing Su-yi's firm will, the messenger was helpless in the end. He could only give a long sigh. Chairman Su, Her Highness hopes that you can witness her coronation. She told me that without your support and encouragement, she wouldn't have become the queen of the Lampari kingdom. That's why she really hopes to ascend to the throne under your watch. If you don't go, she will be very disappointed. I've said it before, I also hope to personally witness this great moment. But Su-yi suddenly knit his brows. After thinking about it, he gave a sigh and continued, All right, I won't say any useless lies. Tell Her Highness for me that the reason I'm not willing to attend her coronation is because I feel that once she becomes the queen, I want to be a good friend like her. If I don't go, I can lie to myself. The messenger looked at Su-yi in surprise. From Su-yi's words, he could tell that the relationship between Su-yi and Her Highness Seveni was much deeper than he thought. Otherwise, Su-yi definitely wouldn't have this emotional feeling. Thinking of Her Highness' expression when she mentioned Su-yi, the messenger suddenly had a look of shock on his face. Could it be? Her Highness and Su-yi's had a relationship that surpassed friendship? Su-yi didn't know that the messenger's thoughts had already wandered far. After pausing, he said with a serious look, Other than that, tell Her Highness for me. Tell her that no matter what, my support for her won't change. Our new flyer's support for the Lampari kingdom won't change either. When the kingdom situation stabilizes, we will have many chances to meet in the future, so she doesn't need to be too disappointed. The messenger looked at Su-yi with a strange look and didn't keep persuading him. After discussing some other details with Su-yi, he announced that he was leaving. Watching the messenger leave, Su-yi couldn't help giving another sigh. Whether he was willing or not, since Seveni had become the Lampari kingdom's queen, their relationship couldn't be as pure as when she was just a princess. The deeper the cooperation between the new flyer and the Lampari kingdom, the more involved they were, the more complicated their relationship would be. In the end, it was already strange that the two of them could maintain the most basic friendship. This wasn't something the two of them could decide because behind them were the Lampari kingdom and the new flyer, carrying the hopes of countless people. Thinking of the complicated situations that could occur in the future, Su-yi gave a bitter laugh. He shook his head and threw away all these negative thoughts. He focused his thoughts on another important matter for the new flyer. The Lampari kingdom situation had been resolved in less than 3 months. Now the Lampari kingdom was gradually stabilizing with Seveni's sudden burst of strength. The Principality of Constantine was the opposite. Lord Wine's wild expansion in the north of the Principality of Constantine had finally attracted the retaliation of the other lords. In the center of the Principality of Constantine, there was a lord who had recently seized territory that Lord Wine had suddenly joined forces with 3 other lords. While Lord Wine hadn't stabilized himself yet, they attacked Lord Wine with all their might. The subordinates of these 4 lords also had some military magic machines bought from the new flyer. Although their individual strength couldn't compare to Lord Wine's subordinates, they weren't that far off and they had half the numbers. So when both sides began fighting, because Lord Wine hadn't stabilized himself and couldn't replenish his supplies, he was defeated in the end. This was the first time Lord Wine had lost a battle since he started attacking other lords. Lord Wine flew into a rage after his defeat and directly found Sui. He gave Sui a clear request that the new flyer couldn't sell military magic machines to the other lords of the Principality of Constantine. Otherwise, he would take back the territory he had given Sui and take all the businesses of the Xinfei Chamber of Commerce for himself. Sui didn't immediately agree to his request, but he also didn't immediately reject it. However, Lord Wine didn't plan on giving Sui time to consider, giving him 3 days to consider it. Sui was seriously considering this problem. If he agreed to Lord Wine's request, it was equal to New Flyer fully supporting Lord Wine. This was equal to putting New Flyer on the opposite side of the other lords of the Principality of Constantine, which would even cause Duke Stantine to be dissatisfied. But if he didn't agree, he would face the wrath of Lord Wine. Lord Wine's threat wasn't a joke. Sui had been considering this problem since he received Lord Wine's ultimatum the day before yesterday and had already considered it for 2 days. He had already considered all the gains and losses during this time, and now he just needed to make a final decision. Sui was a bit hesitant at first, but after receiving the news of Seveni's coronation from the messenger, it was like a door had opened in his heart. "I've already given in long enough, this time. I'm afraid I can't give in again." You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.